Hello, welcome along to the Eurozone show. This focusing on Euro 2012 and not the financial meltdown on the continent. We are looking at the football from a continental perspective, though. 2 days in to the tournament. Where is the money? What do we think about it? We're going to have Ukrainian cats. We're going to have Thai children singing. And I think we're also going to have, I'm told, Italian owls. And Mina Rzouki, one of our guests in the studio, and of course regular on the channel, will be giving her thoughts on the owls and everything else as well. Angus Loughran here with his stats and his aficionado insight into the game will join us as well. Guys, welcome. Good to see you this Sunday morning, bright and early. Got the coffees out. Mina, I don't think you've been to bed. You've just come back from Soho, have you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much.
I've just been out all night.
Quick reaction, guys. 2 days down. We've seen 9 goals in 4 games, but perhaps it doesn't reflect the total drama. Have you enjoyed it, Mina?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think you've had everything so far. I think you've had red cards, you've had drama, you've had controversy, especially in that first match. You've had some great goals, and you've had some upsets, obviously, with Holland and Denmark. Although I didn't think that was such a huge upset as everyone's making it seem. But I think it's been great so far, and I'm so excited for today. What
have you made of it, Angus? You've been crunching your numbers and looking at it, and I suppose not a massive amount of goals, apart from Russia running riot on the first evening of the tournament, but entertainment, the Holland as well yesterday, 28 attempts on goal in their defeat.
Yeah, no, it has been a very entertaining start. I mean, the first game, I thought Poland were going to win the first game, and certainly when they took the lead through a player who'd been touted as one to watch, everything seems to be going well for them, especially when Greece down to 10 men, but it did show us that anything's possible in this tournament when Greece come back to get that crucial point. Russia proved that their win against Italy in the build-up wasn't a fluke.
Some people, 3-0, yeah.
Some people were looking at that result sceptically, but I think Dick Advocaat's got a very well-balanced unit with the Russians, and that was an impressive performance. I mean, the Czechs will try and look back to '96 when, of course, they were decisively beaten by Germany in the first game and went on to reach the final. So yeah, that will be their motivation if I was involved with the Czechs, but it'll be a hard way for them. And then, of course, yesterday, Germany getting a crucial win, but not impressively. I mean, Gomez...
Well, yeah, let's talk about what we think about yesterday as well, because... Well, Gomez, what do you think? Germany's second favourites, they won yesterday, but does it convince you enough to back them? They're 3-1, I think, pre-tournament with the bookmakers.
If anything, it makes me back them even more. What I was so scared about with Germany was that they were going to go all-out attack. They are an embarrassment of riches. They have a very sort of soft centre-back pairing. I'm not that impressed with Badstuber. Yeah. I don't think Boateng, for example, as a full-back is particularly great.
Ronaldo gave him some problems yesterday, didn't he?
Exactly. Per Mertesacker, I wasn't happy with, but obviously they played Matt Hummels, who I think is absolutely wonderful. So I was scared that they were going to play the Dutch way, so it was going to be all beauty and not enough grit, But I think yesterday, the fact that they won that game on the back of the German efficiency, it was like they were just going to go for it and go for it until they found a way. And what they showed you in that match, which they haven't shown in anything, is they've got an answer for everything. You push them out wide, they'll throw crosses in for Mario Gomez. You push them inside,
particularly
they can
from the right wing there, Muller, a lot of balls coming in, weren't there?
Exactly. You want them to go through inside, then you give Ozil license to create even more through balls, opportunities, defence-splitting passes. They have an answer for everything, and this is why I cannot honestly see, with them winning that 1-0 over Portugal, which is, in my opinion, has one of the best defences. I mean, they conceded a lot in qualifiers, but as far as star names go, would you really bet against Pepe, Coentrao, and Bruno Alves?
Well, Bruno Alves had that header at the end, didn't he, as well? And Portugal weren't bad on the night. Perhaps they should have put their foot on the gas a little bit soon. Let's bring in someone with a German perspective. And James Thorogood from Bundesliga.com joins us. James, your reaction to Germany's performance last night, was it wholly convincing, and were you a little bit worried by the way they seemed rattled at the end when Portugal did go on the offensive?
No, it wasn't the most convincing performance. It wasn't, I don't think, the performance that many people expected to see from Germany. A lot of people obviously backing Germany as big favourites in this tournament, thinking that they're going to be able to see off teams comfortably, but Portugal gave them a run for their money. Instead of playing their counter-attacking style of football that we've been used to seeing in recent tournaments, we're seeing them hold possession more. And granted, while that cost them a little bit of movement up front, it meant that at the back they were certainly a lot more stable. I agree with you, Mina. Hummels coming in at the back instead of Mertesacker was a great move. He certainly proved himself, I think, last night, but he's still got space and time to develop really as a player. And then up front, obviously, you had the other strange decision, in my opinion, which was Mario Gomez starting over Miroslav Klose.
Yeah.
That one worked out in the end, but the fact is, I mean, if Klose really wasn't 100% fit, then I understand Jurgi Löw's decision. But if he was fit, I still would have played Klose, and I think we probably would have seen more goals had he started.
What happens now? Because Klose's, it was his birthday yesterday, wasn't it? He's 8 years older than Mario Gomez. But Gomez was awful before he scored the goal, wasn't he? He didn't even know he was playing.
Well, that's it. I mean, on the international stage, Mario Gomez is going to have far less chances to really get himself into the groove compared to what he does with Bayern Munich. And you know, the German fans that I was around were getting very frustrated with Gomez, and then all of a sudden he scores and he's the saviour. And I mean, it is those fine margins that determine things like that, but the fact is they were all calling for Klose around about the 60th minute. At 70th minute it changes, but the fact is, you know, Gomez did well, but not as well as I think Klose would have done.
James, I do think that Mario Gomez offers you an alternative when it comes to if you're forcing Germany to play out wide, then he'll be great for you to just throw him crosses through. I do think Klose is better for the sake of the fact that if they do want to play fast football, you know, then he is better in his movements going forward, more mobile. But my question to you is that doesn't this tell you a lot more about Germany? Because I was scared they were going to be just a beautiful team that played really impressive football and perhaps not the German efficiency that we're used to. But surely now we can see that they can do both.
Yeah, exactly. They have the counter-attacking potential really to devastate teams on the break, you know, with the pace they've got out wide. But the fact is what we saw them do yesterday was take a much more organised and disciplined approach. And as you said, Mina, that almost makes them an even more dangerous team in this tournament. No, this wasn't the razzmatazz performance that, you know, maybe some people were expecting with several goals. But the fact is, as you said, efficiency was the key yesterday for Jurgi Löw. And while he cut a bit of a frustrated figure on the sidelines at times, he was ultimately pleased with what his team did. You know, he praised their defence. And just to talk about Mario Gomez again, his record, 44 goals in 59 games for club and country this season, I think really speaks for itself as well.
Yeah, he didn't play well in the Champions League final.
But he hardly touched the ball last night. I mean, if you look at it, I mean,
yeah.
I felt last night.
They always play. Don't Germany always play a striker? Going back to Gerd Müller, who can't do anything but score goals. They have that one man who's given the licence. Everyone else works hard, and then they have a Klose or they have a Gomez who just.
He probably touched the ball less than a dozen times in the match, which is, I mean, you know, it really was a remarkable effort. I mean, he scored this goal, but he didn't really know he was involved at all, did you?
No, you didn't. And I just wonder what the Dutch would have made it. Because you say that it was an efficient performance overall, but Pepe hits the crossbar in the first half, and then we had Varela with that chance. The keeper smothers that. Maybe a bit more composure, could have scored for Portugal. Nani had a shot blocked at the end, had a cross. I know it was a bit fortuitous to hit the crossbar. Will the Dutch look at that and think perhaps next game they can exploit some weaknesses back there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got you look at the Dutch front line, you know, Robben, Van Persie, Afellay, Schneider, those types of players will be licking their lips at the prospect of going up against a Boateng out wide, for instance. And while Portugal really did do a good job of that, especially down the left, Boateng wasn't really troubled by Ronaldo or Contral, more so Contral than Ronaldo. But it was a really interesting thing to see that Boateng really did slot in on the right-hand side fairly effectively. Yeah. Meanwhile, Holland, yeah, they'll be looking at that back line thinking they can attack it, but the Germans will be thinking the same of the Dutch.
Yeah, I think, if anything...
Over goals in that game then, yeah.
I think the Holland back line is just, I think it's probably one of the weakest in the competition. But going forward, I just think, what do Germany feel about the fact that they haven't had much time together to really drill tactics, and also there's, you know, Schweinsteiger's recovering, Klose's recovering, Per Mertesacker's recovering. What about that? You know, are they confident going forward after that display yesterday? I mean, there haven't really been the razzmatazz like you said, but are they still confident of their chances?
Would they beat Spain?
It was interesting only because yesterday was the first day that I saw German flags out on top of cars and things like that. And at other tournaments when they've been going on, you know, the build-up has been a lot more intense, let's say. And the fact is the German public, their expectations are very high. Now, the German national team after last night will feel that they can win this tournament, no doubt. You know, my concern is whether Gomez is the guy that's going to lead you to a tournament win. That's my only question still remaining. But the fact is, their confidence will have been built by last night's performance because it was so disciplined. And given that this is the youngest average age side in the tournament, that was really important for them to show their maturity yesterday, I think. And really, you know, they might not be playing with that counter-attacking football that's going to tear teams apart. But the fact is, they still know how to grind out a result. This is still Germany we're talking about in a tournament, so you can never really write them off. And the fact is they should go deep into this tournament, yes.
James, quick thoughts on the other side. I know you're giving us a German perspective, but before you go, Cristiano Ronaldo and Robin van Persie, from what you saw yesterday, much vaunted, of course, pre-tournament, and with our Premier League hats, and we know all about them. But what is your assessment of their games?
Yeah, Ronaldo certainly surprised me because I was expecting him to really try and attack Jerome Boateng because everyone was naming that as a weak point in the German starting lineup. But we rarely saw him really go one-on-one, and granted, that's also down to Germany's efficiency, the fact they managed to double up on him. Yeah. But there wasn't, he didn't have that normal verve about his game that I'm used to seeing from Ronaldo. Van Persie, you can say the same thing. It was almost like his confidence up front had gone a little bit, and granted, there were a few comical errors, in terms of him slipping over at the crucial moment, but it just wasn't really as explosive a performance from both of these players as we were expecting, because we were expecting them to really announce themselves on the European stage at this tournament early on, and they both had chances to, if we're honest, as well. Yeah,
it's almost bizarre, isn't it? It looks like Van Persie prefers being with weaker players and being a big fish to swallow pond, and Ronaldo maybe flourishes better with better club players alongside him, bigger names alongside him at club level. James, fantastic to talk to you. I know we've got to let you go because you're off to work, sir. Enjoy it.
I am. Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Great
Bye,
stuff.
James.
James Thorogood from Bundesliga.com. Very interesting to hear that perspective. Confidence in Germany, but I think there's still doubts there, particularly for making them second favourites in the tournament. Angus, your thoughts from a betting perspective? Where would your money be?
Well, I think what you saw last night was very much German efficiency over German verve, but we weren't going to really see that when Gomez was named up front on his own. I mean, I think that when Klose might well be used in this tournament, and I think if Klose is used, the game becomes much more offensive. The interesting thing about the Dutch game coming up is that what tactics will Germany do? They'd love it, as long as they don't lose that. I mean, they'd actually like, in a lot of ways, to know that
beating Denmark in their final.
Yeah,
game,
but if they beat the Dutch, they know that it's not just beating the Dutch; it's knocking the Dutch out.
Yeah.
Now that's
a big old rivalry as well, there, isn't it? To be fair,
I mean that's a big incentive. There was a colossal rivalry between the two, and that mustn't be underestimated. That the significance now of it's a must-win for Holland.
It is
but
must-win.
That's scared German. That's scared Joachim Löw, and he's like very terrified of the fact that before maybe Holland was going to take off their break, allow the fact that Germany will win that because they're favourites. Now it's do or die, and that's going to terrify the Germans because
well, it makes it great for us, doesn't it? We'll talk more about this in just a few moments' time. Do get involved as well on Twitter at Sports Tonight TV. You can also call us 0207 291 0865. Fascinating discussion after a fascinating couple of days at Euro 2012. Join us again on the Eurozone in a few moments' time. Welcome back to the Eurozone, your Sunday morning show, the only place to be throughout Euro 2012 as we reflect on what's happened, what's going to happen, and flavour it with some opinion and some coffee. We've had our coffee in the breaks and hopefully we're raring to go. Fired up, Mina Rzouki, Angus Loughran still with me. And Mina, I know you're fired up on a particular subject. It does get my goat a little bit, how Cristiano Ronaldo takes an inordinate amount of flack and saying he underachieves on the big stage. But I thought he had a decent game. Maybe not the game that a best player in the world might have, but he hasn't got much support, has he, for Portugal?
This is the thing. I think people are very unfair. You talk about the fact that there's so many players don't do it on the big stage. As we've witnessed with Van Persie, we say this all the time about Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Yeah, Messi was even criticised about how he performs for his national team. But with Ronaldo, more than anyone else, I mean, Van Persie is flanked by stars. Yeah, Messi's flanked by possibly the best squad in the world. Yeah, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, yes, perhaps he is not flanked by stars, but I really feel sorry for Ronaldo. You could see yesterday that he was frustrated. He was lifting his hands.
Made a lot of runs, but he didn't receive the ball. He saw him off the ball, particularly the wide shots you saw on television. That he was actually pulling off defenders, and there's not the sort of vision there to play him in.
Exactly. And under his last coach, there was so much responsibility on him to just do everything. Except he's trying to do everything without a number 10, without a proper number 9, and he's got Postiga really to be the striker that does everything. There's no deep lying midfielder. There's no creative talent. But what I like so much about Portugal, as opposed to all the other teams, including Netherlands, is that they know who they are. They know that they're a defensive team. They know that they haven't got much talent going forward in terms of creation.
They better going forward at the end, didn't they, the game? It's an argument
they did,
you can
because
make.
I like Oliveira. He's brilliant. He's their youngster coming through, and there was more attacking movements. But they know that the best chance they have is to play counter-attacking football because they've got a wonderful defence. That's something most of those people in that group don't have. I'm not even that sure about Denmark's defence, even though they did do very well in the last 20 minutes of the game, especially in their match. But they know who they are, so they're going to sit back and defend, go on the counter-attack, use the width and the pace of their two wingers, Nani and Ronaldo, and go for it. But then this is the thing, like, you know, you have to understand that Ronaldo is flanked by guys who don't really know what they're doing, and a midfield that's very... How can you say it? Very
limited,
like,
Moutinho, Morelos, workmanlike, industrious, plodding,
going forward.
Pedestrian.
Exactly, simple.
Well, let's continue this debate with Andy Brassel, European football expert, who joins us now via Skype. Andy, good to talk to you. A little bit of interference there, I'm not sure the connection's like. Andy, your thoughts on Cristiano Ronaldo? Of course, on the night, as Angus has been talking about this morning, that Lionel Messi scores a hat-trick for Argentina against Brazil. There will be those comparisons still made. How did you rate his showing?
Do you think he can hear us?
I don't think old Andy can hear us. It is early doors on a Sunday. He's just firing up his computer. We'll get back to him in just a second. But Angus, you talked about this with you, and we've been watching the goals this morning. I know you watched it live. I think New York Giants Stadium last night. Lionel Messi hat-trick against Brazil, and he always seems to upstage Cristiano, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the timing of it was perfect, really. I mean, you know, like the Portugal game had just finished, and you know, I think many had thought that high-profile friendly might have been put on a bit later, so it would have got a bigger global audience. Because you know, putting on head-to-head against a competitive match in the Euro, I don't think it was a clever thing. But I mean, it was played in the heat of the afternoon in Meadowlands in New York, but. You know, there are people who are saying Messi's done it at club level. He scored all these goals for Barcelona, but he hasn't had it for Argentina. Well, I mean, that's 8 goals in the last 4 internationals.
We're based on the last World Cup that they had Diego.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
necessarily the most coherent Argentina in the
of course. But I mean, Messi, they'll be looking. Everything's focused for Argentina and for Brazil, of course. More so for them on the World Cup in 2 years. I think the match last night had a flavour of what we might see at the Olympics for them. And remember, I mean, the Olympics, Brazil have never won the Olympic gold medal in football, which is quite, you know, like something that they've got to sort of try and adhere when it's been under 23. I would say, you know, Messi and Argentina, they are looking towards that World Cup. I mean, Messi's now at the height of his career. I mean, you know, 82 goals in a calendar year. It's just ridiculous. And I mean, you know, the winner was something very special. And we're in an era now where normally Ronaldo would be clearly the best player in the world. He'd be out on his own with what he's done for Real Madrid. But at the moment,
it's a blow for Messi. But I mean, Ronaldo, it's difficult to assess because you look at the stats. Messi's a better dribbler, isn't he? And perhaps potentially even a better goal scorer, which is hard to say because Ronaldo's 1-in-1 for Real Madrid.
I mean,
but Ronaldo can head the ball. He can head the ball like a centre half. He can shoot with both feet. His left foot's arguably better than Messi's right foot. Yeah. You can make that case. I mean, there's ways you can break it down.
I think we're in a golden age.
But Ronaldo's 6'2" and Messi's 5'6", so it's very hard to compare them, really. Isn't it?
My thing is that Ronaldo has done it everywhere. He's done it at Manchester United, he did it in Portugal, and he's doing it at Real Madrid. Different squads, different mentalities, different philosophies, all the way forward. And he's been a star everywhere he's gone. It's difficult. You know, Messi's had a lot better chances in being developed into a certain play, into a certain routine. So he's luckier in that sense. I do think he's probably a better player.
Him a free role and things like that. Maybe to Portugal, what do they need to do what does Paulo Bento need to do to get the best out of Cristiano
Surround
Ronaldo?
him by good players, but they can't do that because they don't have the star players that they need to make him an even better player going forward. I mean, like I told you, there's no creativity. He has to be the star.
Midfield players? I mean, do they seem to play 3 in the centre mid? Can they play someone a bit further forward? Or
they need a Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't got the players, it's not a lot you can do. No. And I mean, you know, I thought, as you said, I thought Cristiano in the circus last night had a good game. He was disciplined, whereas sometimes he's not. Yeah. I think that sometimes, and the frustrating thing with Ronaldo, sometimes he thinks he can be the one-man team. He thinks he can be the star player.
Last night, in from the left wing.
Yeah, we saw it earlier. I mean, last night he was doubly man-marked, not singly man-marked, doubly man-marked. I thought Germany, you know, decided they'd do a job on him, and they did a good job on him. But he was still good enough to occasionally show the...
Well, James Thorogood said that Boateng did a job, but I thought Boateng, you booked him one incident, and when he was, when he was isolated one-on-one, Ronaldo did beat him, didn't he?
Once he's been booked, that's a huge result for Ronaldo.
Yeah.
A huge
then he
result.
has to be softer.
So, I thought it was a decent performance overall. So what of Denmark then for Portugal, the next game? Do we fancy them there?
They've got to go for it, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've got...
I
mean, they've got to try and win the game.
Because I think Clarence Seedorf said last night, interestingly, he said, well, Portugal's tactics, you can admire them to a certain point, but they keep going out of major tournaments. They're not going to win a major tournament.
Well, no, I mean, they're a very disjointed team, Portugal, going forward. It's a great defence and also it's not so great going forward. But for Denmark, I don't understand why everyone thinks that they're just this rubbish team. They top their group. They like to keep...
top the group Portugal, didn't they?
Yeah, this is it, qualifying. They know how to... They're very balanced. You know, they don't have the best defence in the world, in my opinion, but I do think Agger was absolutely spectacular yesterday.
Yeah.
And they have a balanced going forward. I mean, Bentner's not the best, but he's by far better than most people that he has in Denmark. They have... They like to keep the ball, they like to keep possession, they play the ball out from the back, they play interesting football, they are quite attacking when they want to be. And I think that they have in them a coach who's been there for so long, he understands the mentality, and I think they're a very difficult team to beat. So... no one should underestimate.
And recent games between the two teams are really interesting. And I mean, you know,
they both won at home, didn't they, in qualifying? Is that right?
Yeah, but I mean, and going back to the World Cup, they've had some extraordinary games. These two. There's more than a little bit of history between Denmark and Portugal, and certainly with goals as well. And I think that if you think Holland and Germany's going to be high scoring, I think it'll be nothing compared with. Portugal and Denmark, literally anything could happen in that match. It's interesting
that Michael Crondelli used to play for Ajax. He got 4 games in 2 years as well, and he comes back and stings the Dutch yesterday. Let's get the thoughts of Andy Brassel then. He does join us now, European football expert. Andy, good to have you on, sir. Your thoughts on Portugal, Germany. Did Portugal blow it tactically, or did, as Mina says, do what they had to do and play a defensive game?
No, I think they did the right thing, given that it's Germany. You look at the power they've not just got on the pitch, but on the bench as well. And, I think Germany were a little circumspect as well. We're used to them being a counter-attacking team. But, that just wasn't going to work yesterday evening. And I think it was a typical opening game of a tournament as well. No one wanted to give anything away. And, I think Bento realised that you have to be tactically adaptable. Of course, they were a lot more dynamic in qualifying. They scored a lot of goals. I think they scored the third highest tally of goals in qualifiers pro rata. Of course, they were in a smaller group, but they had to try and control the game a little bit more, and give or take a quite fortunate goal. I think they pretty much did all right, really.
Fair enough. And the subject of Ronaldo rears its head again, of course. And does he perform on the big stage? Did he perform well last night? I think a lot of people maybe say a 7 out of 10 performance would be fair for him. He says that he's not liked in comparison to Messi because he's better looking than Messi and people are jealous of him. Is there some substance in that at all? Because Messi does look like the sort of confused lad next door, doesn't he? Really, he's not a stud type like Ronaldo.
Well, there's no sort of, I suppose you could say there's no real personality outside football to Messi, really, is there?
Yeah.
Whereas Ronaldo's going to divide because he's not especially modest. But having said that, everything that he's said he's going to do in the game from when he's 18 years old, he's done, and he's achieved it through hard work. So it's hard to criticise. I think really the main question in Portugal is going to be going into the second game against Denmark, because young Nelson Oliveira was so good.
Yeah.
Came on for a really ineffective Postiga. I think probably Bento's going to come on under a lot of pressure to bring him in, because it's all about setting up the team around Ronaldo. Now, they're doing the right thing, playing him on the left as he plays for Real Madrid. He showed in flashes that he could affect the game, even though they weren't all out attacking. But I think it showed that Oliveira could be such a better foil for him. I suppose the difficulty is, you're talking about someone who's not scored a league goal for Benfica yet. He's only started 7 or 8 games. And Portugal is so desperate to have this fantastic centre forward that you get the impression that it will be easy to put a lot of pressure on him. So I think Bento's taken it slow.
Yeah, I suppose the issue is the supply as well. I mean, I've been to the Madeira derby, Nacional versus Maritimo, and the quality isn't that great in the Portuguese league, the Liga Sagres, is it? So it's difficult to find the playmakers there. No problem finding playmakers for Holland, but do they actually play them? What about Van Bommel and De Jong? What did you make of the Dutch yesterday? Were they too cautious in that game against the Danes?
Well, I suppose it worked for them in the 2010 World Cup, and this has been a debate that was raging on then, even when they got to the final. I think I spoke to Brian Roy, who's now the manager of the reserve team at Ajax, the day before the final in 2010, and he said this is just not the way the Dutch play football with two defensive midfielders, and we would never stand for this at Ajax. So there's a bit of an ideological debate that's been going on for years.
You could play Van der Vaart there, could you? Is that an argument against weaker teams? Van Mark has played Van der Vaart as one of the two central midfielders, still behind Sneijder, to supply Sneijder quickly with the ball.
Yeah, I think that is a possibility, but are Denmark a weaker team? I don't think so.
No.
So, Andy, going forward, do you think that Portugal fancy their chances against Holland, especially against that back line that they've got there? And considering the fact that Portugal boast a little more balance in their squad, maybe it's not the greatest attack, but at least they can defend. Do they think that they could possibly qualify over Holland?
So no points for Holland basically throughout the course of the
well, they just
group.
Can't look beyond this game against Denmark. Of course, it will be all to play for against Holland in the final game in Kharkiv if they don't lose against Denmark. But they've got a tremendous record in tournaments. They've never lost to the Dutch in a tournament, and they've lost once in 10 games overall. So, yeah, I think Portugal will fancy the chances.
Do you get on? Is this now the time to bet on Holland to win it? I wonder, Angus, because of course they lost it in 1988 European Championships. If we look back at the history, they lost the first game there, but maybe haven't quite got the quality throughout of that team with the likes of Gullit and Van Basten and
this would be a problem, but I just think so many of their attacking players, if you take away Van Persie and Huntelaar, who they can't fit in the same team anyway, so many of them.
I disagree with that. I think they can play together. Why do you say they can't play together? You would just sacrifice Sneijder. Why not play them together? I think Huntelaar's better alongside another player.
Can you sacrifice Sneijder, who was the best player for them in the World Cup 2 years ago?
As a number 9, and you can't play them both there.
Interesting. Well, Mina, you made a quick comment there. Defences win titles, and I think we can prove that Mina Rzouki knows her stuff. And Andy listening, because this was a tweet that our producer noted yesterday, that Mina flying out there. Mina, do you want to read this out for us, just to have your moment of glory?
There's nothing more suspect than that Dutch back line. There's nothing to say Denmark can't score more. I told you from the start, like when you have such an obvious flaw in your team, and which is for me, that is just such an average, if not less than average backline that they've got going for you. I honestly think the Republic of Ireland...
Miss Van Bronckhorst now as well, do they think?
Yeah, and also the thing about Holland is that they don't know who they are. Portugal knows who they are. They're not a great squad going forward, so they're a defensive team, and they're going to just exploit the pace of their two wingers. But the Dutch is like, you have to decide, are you an attacking team? If so, put in Van der Vaart, take off one of your defensive midfielders and just go all out attack, concede 5 goals, but score 6.
Yeah.
Be Brazil, or do you want to be a defensive team?
The match finished 1-0 though. I understand where you're coming from, and I agree. But I mean,
they had enough chances, didn't they?
I mean, Denmark have, Bentner up top, so they're not going to be a team that scores like 7,000 goals either. But you have to know who you are, or you want to be a defensive team, in which case you're not going to win anything because it's disjointed now. You have 6 back, 4 forward.
Andy, the argument as well around Holland, and 28 attempts on goal yesterday. Robin van Persie had probably some of the best opportunities. The question marks raised about him. We talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. Do people now say, is Robin van Persie a player that excels when he's a big fish in a small pond, somewhere like Arsenal, arguably?
Well, he's just under huge pressure, really, from Huntelaar. I think that's the question. Yeah. Of course, he can do a little bit more than Huntelaar, but they just need goals. And I think the worrying thing is, you say they had so many shots. I don't think Anderson was completely overworked. He had an impressive game, but you wouldn't say it's the hardest game of his life, I don't think.
But what I wanted to ask you about Robin van Persie is, say you were the owner of a club, and now he is possibly looking for a move, or
he's 29 next month as well, so it's a couple of years deal,
would you buy this player who firstly is injury prone, who had a magnificent season, probably not going to be able to repeat that again? Would you bet on this man?
It's really hard to, as you say, on the basis of that injury record. I mean, every time he goes over, you think, right, this is going to be the injury that hasn't happened all season. So, you look for a series of seasons, especially when you're talking about the sort of money involved.
Andy, give us a general thought as you weigh things up then, as a European football expert. Have you been moved in some of your pre-tournament predictions? I know we've got 2 groups we haven't seen yet, but what do you think in terms of who's going to go the furthest from what you've seen?
Well, I think Germany have made a good, steady start. I think for both of those teams, the important thing was to try not to lose last night. So I don't think you can't say Germany aren't the dynamic force that they once were on the basis of last night. And you can't say Portugal are a defensive team on the basis of last night, because it was just horses for courses in that particular game. I don't think anyone will be too disappointed. I'm really desperate to see Spain later on and see how they get on with Italy, because I think that will be a real test for them.
Andy, what's your prediction on that one?
I think Spain will win narrowly.
Ooh, Mina Rzouki, controversial. Get a scoreline for us then, Colin. Spain always win 1-0, don't they? But they haven't got David Villa now, so who scores that goal?
1-0, they always berate Italy for winning 1-0. Funny that.
I think I'll give you 2-1, because they've got a bit of power off the bench as well, and I fancy Santi Cazorla to make an impact coming off the bench this tournament.
You think he'll play?
No, I think coming off the bench he'll make a difference.
Well, we'll get the odds from Angus on that, over 2.5 goals as well. You'll probably get good value with Spain and Italy. Great to speak to you, Andy Brassell, European football expert. Enjoy the tournament, sir. We'll catch up with you again soon, no doubt.
Thanks. Look forward to it.
Bye,
Cheers,
Andy.
So there we have it. Andy Brassell with his thoughts on what we've seen in Euro 2012 Group B yesterday. We'll start looking ahead to Group C and, of course, Group D after this short break. Welcome back to the Eurozone, continuing to dissect and discuss what we've seen so far in the European football in Poland and the Ukraine. Still to come, of course, we've got a singing cat. Oh no, we haven't got a singing cat. We've got a cat who can make predictions, a Ukrainian cat. We've got an Italian owl, and what that means, Mina Rzouki will tell us. And we've also got some Thai kids who are singing about the Ireland football team, which will be interesting. Angus Loughran waiting for that. I know he's on the edge of his seat and enthused, no doubt. Mina Rzouki with us. And Mina, let's talk quickly on Group A on Friday, as we are reflecting on the tournament thus far. Russia, you think, flattered to deceive a little bit, because a lot of people have been wowed by that performance against the Czech Republic.
Yeah, I mean, they're a solid team, by all means. Goals are hard to come by for this squad. I know. Please don't judge it on the back of Czech Republic. You know, this is what I mean. I mean, Czech Republic is probably one of the weakest.
Do you think Petr Cech should have saved a couple of those goals, potentially?
Yes, but I do think that they have a very bad defence. They are a side that's sort of in between generations. They have an old guard and they have a great, exciting talent, but they have nothing in between. So you've got old guys that shouldn't really be there anymore, and you've got young kids that are too inexperienced for this level. So it's not going to be a squad that's going to do anything. So Russia is a solid defensive unit. They played attacking football on this occasion. It was more fluid going forward. But the thing with Russia is when they face a big team, what are they going to do? Because they're not going to play this fluid
You think the centre midfield gets closed down too quickly and they maybe buckle a little bit under pressure?
And they have no plan B.
Yeah.
No plan B.
Well, I think that's a little harsh on Dick Advocaat. I think he's... I take your points on board, but I think that there's a bit more to them than that. And maybe he's got the best out of a group of players who perhaps others haven't. But they've got quite a solid unit. And I mean, that team is pretty much what you expected to see. They may have overachieved against a weaker opposition, and will they do it in a bigger occasion? It's interesting. There's still a double-figure price to win the tournament. I mean, 12-1 is freely available now.
It's the same as England, is it?
They've been dismissed. They haven't shortened up into betting. So the punters have not actually reacted to it.
Zhagayev's been vaunted for a couple of years as being a potential big player. I think he's still only 22 or thereabouts. But the ones that interested me, you talk about Dick Advocaat and utilising the best out of players. Andrei Arshavin in that kind of role of roaming around the field, being able to go both ways, his assists, his passing range, and things like that come into play. It made me wonder, is Arsene Wenger missed a trick here with Arshavin, trying to play him as an industrious left-sided midfielder? It seemed to me yesterday that perhaps that was, on Friday, that was the best way to play Arshavin.
He's playing this Russian side a bit like he did with Zenit St. Petersburg. I mean, you know, Advocaat was quite shrewd with what he did to that
strong
club.
Zenit presence in this team, yeah.
And he's utilising that, and he's playing them in a good way, and they're going to be hard to beat, the Russians.
You see, the thing about Russia and why they're probably good going forward is in the sense that they have this, they've been together for a long time now. There's a solid unit that know each other quite well. There's chemistry in between their players. You've got the midfield made up of Zenit St. Petersburg. You've got the back line made up of CSKA Moscow players. So it's club harmony being brought into the overall team. They are more of a team than they are about so much as individual stars. But I mean, if you are goals were very hard to come by in qualifying, and they only managed 6 against Andorra, and they managed 4 against Czech Republic. But if they qualify at this group, they will be facing either Germany or, at this stage, I'm not sure who's going to come second in that, Netherlands, Portugal. Can they do it against these big teams? I can't see that happening.
Well, everyone's got question marks at the back as well, particularly. It's interesting stuff. Let's talk to Raf Honigstein on the road, literally to Gdansk on the line now, European football expert. Raf, fantastic to speak to you on this Sunday morning. So what have you made so far of the games? And we haven't mentioned yet Poland's draw with Greece and the eventful opening to the tournament. Who stood out for you, players and teams?
Well, I think Russia were very impressive with Djagoev, of course, and the Dortmund connection looked very good, at least for the first 30 minutes or so. So far, it's been a strange tournament because sort of all the fears and some of the hype was actually justified, with the exception of Germany, who didn't quite deliver. So one of the biggest sides, and the big favourites, have let us down, but everyone else has really more or less performed to the potential. I'd say even the Dutch, despite being very bad at the back, nearly, or should have done enough scoring, and they played really well. So it's been unpredictable in terms of 1 or 2 results, but actually it's more or less panned out the way we expected it.
My caretaker tells me that Manchester United have locked up, and he's good, he gets his ear to the ground. He tells me that Manchester United have locked up deals for Luka Modric, and we're hearing Robert Lewandowski. What was your impressions of Lewandowski for Poland? 'Cause he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders, hasn't he?
He has, but he carries it well, and he loves to play in that role. You can see some of the moves look very studied. They have done similar stuff now throughout the year with Dortmund. The United story you can really forget, because
Really?
They asked about him about a month ago, were knocked back straight away, and haven't been in touch since. And the comments that came from František Smuda about him being off there were very flippant throwaways. He was just basically rambling, and according to a very well-informed Polish journal, he'd be the last one to know if he were to move, and absolutely no indication that anything is happening, so forget about it.
What about Cristiano Ronaldo, Robin van Persie, your assessments of their performances? Because, of course, the knives will be sharpened a little bit by the critics who say they're not necessarily performing on the biggest stage for their countries.
Well, I think Cristiano had a decent game, actually. You could yet again see what the problem is. I mean, he's always caught in 2 minds. He's always, I think, thinking, I am the best player, I should try to do things. He's also thinking, I shouldn't be too selfish, I should look for my teammates, look for Nani and Postiga. But Nani had a very disappointing game, I felt. A lot of hype about him performing, but he's been inconsistent throughout the season, and he was just as inconsistent again, flickering in and out of the game.
Yeah, negotiating a new contract at the moment as well, Nani.
It's just too much. It's just too much for Cristiano to do on his own. It nearly paid off in terms of the counter-attacking. That's the only way they can play, or they nearly would have had the draw that they wanted. But it's tough for him to do this kind of stuff that we see at Real Madrid, because Portugal just don't have any possession.
Exactly. Raf, you seem to be very downhearted about Germany's chances. But surely in a match that was sort of the opening of that group, it's their first game of the tournament. I thought they did a very spectacular job in terms of efficiency. I know goals were hard to come by, but this is a very solid defensive unit in Portugal. Why do you not think that, why are you so downhearted about it? And I know that you don't seem to be very happy with Ozil, from what I understand as well.
Yeah, how do you know all these things, Mina?
I stalked you.
I was disappointed with Ozil. I think he really didn't dominate the game.
You see, I think he was spectacular.
Good first half, was he fantastic?
I don't think so. I think you saw also his body language when he come off, that he really knew that he had a poor game, and Löw sort of came to console him, and Ozil just went past him.
Does he like playing with Gomez, do you think?
There are 1 or 2 problems in the side. But you're absolutely right. The defence was the big success. Yes, they had the moments where Boateng didn't always look comfortable, but that was to be expected. On the whole, I think Bartstuber and Hummels, guys who haven't really played together a lot, looked very good. Perhaps better than people anticipated. Certainly Hummels, had his critics right including the training staff for the national team, really had a stormer. So it's encouraging. But I think it's also a little bit worrying from a perspective that Löw isn't quite there where he wants to be with his team. Yes, they were efficient. Yes, they got a result under difficult circumstances against a very tricky team. But can he actually play the kind of football he wants to play with Gomez, with Müller, with Podolski, people who aren't actually that technical? So there are one or two still big question marks after this performance.
Who starts up front next game against Holland then?
Klose, please.
Well, it's going to be tough because Löw, instinctively would prefer Klose. He's a better fit. Germany's best games over the last 2 years have come with him up front. He has an extra dimension, linking up with the midfield, moving, creating space for them. Gomez, as you know, don't do any of these things. He's just a presence, which is good, especially if you're a little bit technical. Sometimes it's better to have a presence up there.
Yeah.
But of course now, him having scored, it's going to be very tough to replace him. So that's a big conundrum. But I wouldn't be surprised if Klose actually starts.
Interesting. Yeah, he was almost about to be pulled off as Gomez before he scored. Quickly, before you go, Raf, predictions today: Spain, Italy, and Republic of Ireland against Croatia. What are you going for?
Be nice.
Republic of Ireland, Croatia, I think might be a 0-0.
It was last time, I bet, yeah.
Many great hopes for the Irish, and I feel a little bit for Italy. It's not going to be a walkover, but I think they haven't quite got the right setup for Spain. I think they'll surprise people with the way they play, but against the Spanish side, the old Italy might have been better equipped than the new one. So I think Spain will win this.
I was going for Spain. It's 2-0 so
Of
far.
course
Mina
he
Rzouki
is.
for our guest. Very good to speak to you, Raf Honigstein, European football expert. We'll, of course, catch up with you during the course of the tournament on the Eurozone. Goodbye for now, sir.
Cheers.
Good stuff, interesting there. We'll talk about Spain, Italy in due course and analyse perhaps why people are going for Spain. I suppose the stats will bear out why as world and European champions. But reflect on Poland and Greece, the first game, Angus. Ruined by referee decisions or enlivened by refereeing decisions? What did you make of it?
Well, I think it was going so well, wasn't it, for Poland? And once they'd got themselves in front, I didn't find too many people who thought that Greece were going to come back into that game.
Greece like playing with 10 men.
Yeah, but you have to give Greece credit for getting themselves back into the game. And once they got back into the game, arguably they looked the more likely side to go on and win it, and they could have easily done. They had the chances. They didn't take the chance with the penalty, but it was, in the end, I think a relieving result for the host nation. Poland would have been devastated to have lost the game, especially having been in the position where they were in front.
2004 when it's Greece as well, and people have written them off ahead of the tournament.
Well,
but the record, they lost like 1 in 20 games, haven't they, coming
But
into
this is the thing, it's very annoying the way that people have been about Greece. I was actually commentating that game for Sports Night Live, and I just thought that it's been the way it's been. It's like, oh yeah, Poland and Russia will go through. Greece is ridiculous. They're so negative in the way they go. Fine, they may
solid,
be that,
aren't they?
but they've scored quite a lot more goals than a lot of people think they do. They're dead ball specialists. They defend it as a solid unit. I don't think they performed as Greece usually does in the first half. That wasn't a very typical Greece performance. But Poland, as much as they do have talent on the right-hand side, and I do quite like Rybus on the left, they don't have a solid centre-back partnership. And I keep saying this defence needs, and you saw that when Greece got it, when Greece got that goal, you were like, what the hell is it?
They haven't got a solid keeper, have they, either?
Szczesny is obviously...
What did you make of Wojciech Szczesny? Because we've talked about the guy at the head of the pitch for Arsenal, Robin van Persie. What about Wojciech Szczesny? Because we've seen Gunners keepers, David Seaman, 2002 on the big stage, flounder a little bit. Is he suggesting perhaps he's not going to be the keeper they're hoping for?
Well, I mean, he's made some great saves, but he's also made some high-profile blunders. And, let's face it, if you make a blunder as a keeper, it is a high-profile blunder because you're in the public eye the whole time.
Was the penalty, we've got the red card obviously on the screen there,
yeah.
Was that a professional foul, astute thing to do, or was it silly? Should he have just let the guy have the touch and then wait to see what happened?
In hindsight, obviously, that would have been the sensible thing to do. But I mean, it happened so quickly. These things happen. I don't think you can necessarily put too much blame on him for that. I mean, like the punishment's, rewarded with the crime. Really, I mean, he's got a suspension and he won't be involved in the second game for sure. It was difficult, really. It's just that. For me, Poland were in control of that game, and they just really, the second goal would have killed it, but it never happened, a second goal, and Greece grew in confidence. And I mean, going back to 2004, I mean, they were the rank outsiders of the whole tournament in that in Portugal, and they in the end won playing the same type of football the whole way through.
Defensive football that Mina Rzouki's talked
This is
about all the way
their
through.
golden generation,
So
though. This is their chance to do something special. And you know what? I would fancy them against Russia. That could be an interesting match. Russia is a short squad by definition. If they actually managed to exploit the chances they have from dead ball situations, get in those corners, to start heading in the ball, you don't know what's going to happen. I wouldn't write off Greece. I know that they're defensive. They have a coach who's been voted the best coach in the last decade.
Yeah.
He knows how to get that team moving, and I do think they've got some players. They have Ninis, Fetsides as creative talent. They have defensive solidity. They have Kyriakos, who's on the bench, one of the best defenders. You know, Schalke boy. So
Samras wasn't great, was he? To be fair.
But do you think then? Do you think then that if Greece were to go on and win the tournament this year, it would be a bigger shock than when they won in 2004? Because I think it would be.
We'll talk more about this
in
due course.
When it
exactly. Probably a massive boost to the Eurozone financially as well if they did. Hopefully for the country. Right, in a few moments' time, we'll look ahead to the moment that Mina Rzouki's been looking forward to, perhaps dreading. I don't know, in a personal time. Italy against Spain. After this short break, Eurozone back in a few moments. Hello there, welcome back to the Eurozone, or welcome for the first time if you've just woken up this Sunday. Reflecting, of course, what we've seen so far in the Championships, and a man who's just woken up as well, Don McGuinness. We just found you out back and thought we'd drag you onto the set, sir. Are you well as a Irishman? I know you've got the big thing to come.
There's so much truth in what you've just said. It's unreal, Ed. Yeah, no, I'm fine, thank you.
We know you were. You're on duty last night, of course, covering
yes.
boxing with the Manny Pacquiao-Timothy Bradley fight. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about football. Your reflections on the Euro 2012 so far. Who stood out for you?
It started very badly. I mean, you look at the Denmark result, which is phenomenal, really. I think even the opening game with Poland and Greece was fantastic, wasn't it, in terms of incident? I think overall the organisers will be delighted. One or two things off the field that they won't be particularly happy with in terms of a PR scene, but I think overall when you're getting topsy-turvy results and things that aren't going according to plan, you've got to be happy with that. And I think the fans that are there, from what I'm hearing, particularly from Poznan, there's a great scene there. Nearly 30,000 Ireland fans, by the way, gathering in Poznan ahead of the Croatia game.
It must be one of the biggest travelling contingents of the Championships, isn't it?
It is the biggest. Yeah. And also, I think it's obviously with Ireland not being there.
Considering Germany next door, it's amazing.
Exactly, but without being there for 24 years, it's just captured, despite the austere times that we're living in. It's a case of everyone jump in the van, just like basically, in Irish terms, they all talk about Ray Houghton and Stuttgart in '88, and everyone jumping in vans and driving over on the ferries in all sorts of convoys and
Houghton in
vehicles.
'94, Mina can probably remember that as well, I'd imagine, against the Italians as well, USA '94.
Yes. Thank you for bringing back that memory, and thank you.
How confident? You've still got the same team as the 2002 World Cup, pretty much, haven't you? At least the three main players, Duff, Given, and of course Robbie Keane.
I think whatever you say, team is the key word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they are not individuals. They are not by any means a good-looking team in terms of the talent they have on show. But the Republic, with Given being fit and just that Richard Dunn, who's had a funny time really at club level, but he is absolutely key for that Republic team. Without Richard Dunn, really, there is not a team.
He's turns like Titanic, but he plays better than his technique suggests, doesn't he?
Exactly, but the thing is, they just know their own job. It is a club side at international level. I mean, and even McGeady seems to understand what to do for Ireland now under Trapattoni, who is incredibly loyal. He's kept the same squad, but obviously Kevin Foley's not been happy that he feels he was betrayed ahead of the Euro selection. But otherwise, it's the same core players for the 4 years that Trapp's been there.
Might drop Robbie Keane at some point.
Interesting two things. He named the team early. That can go both ways.
It was a team that everyone expected, really, wasn't it, for the starting 11, 4-4-2.
I mean, I know it's slightly an illusion, but they are the only team in the Euros who's every single one of the players plays outside Ireland. I mean, there's not one Irish league player in the squad. They're all, well, technically, I mean, there's just not one player who plays in Ireland. 14
matches unbeaten. I think they've ever lost away in a competitive match on Giovanni Trapattoni.
And
you've got support for the Irish from all over the world, because we can hear now from I think Good Child Foundation in Thailand singing a fantastic song of support for the Emerald Isle. Here we go. Thank you again for the Good Child Foundation, wearing Celtic shirts, those Thailand children there, and with the Republic of Ireland flags. Dom, that must fill you with some hope and inspiration.
It's the surreal I think I've ever seen on a Sunday morning.
It'd only be Ireland, wouldn't it? I mean, that's the feel-good factor, and you say the 30,000 fans travelling over there. And with Trapattoni, I think the oldest ever manager officially today, when he takes them out against Croatia in the European Championships. 73, yeah, of course, the former Italy manager. It's going to be a difficult game for him, I guess, that one later on.
He feels there's unfinished business, though, doesn't he, from 10 years ago with the Italy side that was thwarted by Croatia. Again, these things always come back to repeat themselves. There's always some nice little script here and there. And I think with Trapattoni, and again, without harping on the Italian connection, but of course he's never lost to Italy, has he?
It's 3 games, it's 2 friendlies, and it was a draw. So let's not get carried away, shall we?
I think the value, we'll talk about Ireland in due course, the value will be back in draws in all of Ireland's games, won't it? 0-0 perhaps. But we'll talk about that, and I don't want to disappoint or deflate Dom too soon. Let's get on to Spain. Italy, Mina, and you can start to formulate a case. You've got a bit of time, but Spain, the world champions, the European champions, ranked by FIFA as the clear and indisputable world #1. The Italians won the World Cup in 2006, but have fallen apart since. They're coming in, as they did in 2006 World Cup, with a match-fixing scandal at their back. They haven't got a Totti, they haven't got a Baggio in the 10 role, but have they got hope?
Yes, I think that people have been really disrespectful about Italy's chances. It's been really annoying to listen to what people have had to say. Some of them called them the embarrassment of Europe and the team that would be the most disappointing. I can't actually see why, because there's no star quality perhaps there. You know, you only really have Pirlo, Buffon in goal, but
and they're further back in the team, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say so. But you know, you can't ever underestimate Cassano, who was a Real Madrid player, one of the most creative footballers that we've ever seen in the world of football. You just never really, I guess, put his talent on show as much. And then you've got Balotelli, who obviously got the assist that won Manchester City the league title. But I think what annoys me about why people are so disappointed with Italy is that overall they don't have the attack of Netherlands, they don't have the team dynamics of Germany, but they're balanced in everything. Everything. They've got a balanced midfield, they've got a balanced attack, and they've got a great defence. So I'm not sure why everyone's like, oh, they're going to just lose against everyone, when people are so sure of England's chances going through, considering the fact they only got a coach about last month.
I don't know about that. I'm not particularly sure about it.
Why would you be so downcast about Italy, who are 4 times world champions?
And once in the European Championship. They know how to win big tournaments, of course, and England have only done that once. But let's not get on to England and Italy just yet. Let's talk Italy-Spain. We're going to bring in Tim Stannard over Skype, who you can follow on Twitter at La Liga Loca, a Spanish expert for 442 magazine. Tim, good to speak to you. We've talked about Spain and the statistics suggesting world #1, European #1, blah, 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 world #1 player, or world #1 team. But are there cracks beneath the veneer at the moment just because of the absences for this tournament?
Well, it's either going to be a positive or negative. Of course, players like David Villa and Carlos Puyol not being there is a bit of a blow for the team in terms of goals up front and security and experience at the back. But it's a very, very deep squad, and it's actually giving an opportunity to other players on the positive side. Other players, perhaps, who didn't play so much of a big role in South Africa, but called themselves World Cup winners, talking about David Silva, Juan Mata, Fernando Llorente, and Pedro, players like Santi Cazorla, who wasn't even in the squad. So you could say this is a new generation of Spain who are just as hungry as the other one. So you can look at it either way. I see it as a positive. I think they have a huge amount of depth and variety in the squad this year.
You mentioned Llorente, and I was a massive, massive fan of him for what he's done at Bilbao before that Atletico Madrid. And of course, at the last World Cup, I remember his impact came on against Portugal, gave Spain a different option, because perhaps without Messi, you know, talk about the Barcelona players, they don't have that little bit of something different. He offered a different option for them. But Vicente Del Bosque, probably going to play Fernando Torres, is he, against Italy?
I think he's going to play with Fernando Torres, I think, because, Del Bosque is a manager who sticks with the players who've done well for him in the past, and obviously it was under Luis Aragonés when he won that, well, you could say set Spain on their path in 2008 with a winning goal against Germany. And in the friendlies, Fernando Torres looked a very different player to the one against Chelsea, perhaps less weight on his shoulders. He said how relieved he was when he was named in the Spain squad. He didn't think he was going to make it. And he's looked fresh, he's looked sharp, and he's looked very, very happy indeed. So they're going to try and get the old Fernando Torres back for this game. Torres is someone who, sort of, you could say, can score goals, follows instructions, knows exactly the system which Del Bosque wants. So the chances are he's going to stick with him in the front three, I think, against Italy tonight.
Hi, Tim, it's Mina. Hi. I was going to ask you about, I'm actually happy with Torres, because for Spain, I do think that he works well.
As an Italian fan, you're happy with him more?
No, I'm not. I actually think he works very well against tactically organised teams. You know, I think he can offer you something different. I'm not as big a fan of Llorente as everyone in the world.
Does he not need the ball more quickly than Spain are going to give it to him?
You never know with that Spain, their most unpredictable team. But it's not just he does need pace, but he's good with movement. He will roam forward and he will try to open up Italy's back line, which I'm not sure Llorente can do as effectively. But what I did want to ask you is that centre-back pairing of Ramos and Piqué. Now, I know they don't really like each other very much. Is it something that Italy will see as a weakness and Spain are worried about at all?
Well, no, I think it's something that's very strong. They're saying yesterday in the press that the stories don't like each other's nonsense because, you know, they have their little tiffs during the Barcelona-Real Madrid games, but pretty much all the players do, and then afterwards they say they get on just fine. If you were, say, an England fan, if you had Iker Casillas at the back, in goal rather, and then you had Piqué and Ramos, you'd be delighted with that pairing. It could be a very, very strong one. I think Sergio Ramos was outstanding for Real Madrid last season. And it's a bit of a positive, maybe moving him into the centre-back position. If Puyol was there, he would be at right-back. But I think it's an extremely strong one. So there's no concerns really over either of them not really getting on. Maybe concerns over Piqué's form, whether he can get it back after a difficult time with Barcelona.
Yeah, in and out of Barcelona, wasn't he, towards the end of the season in particular. A comment from Xavi, Barcelona better winners than Real Madrid. There'll always be that divide between Catalan and the Castile players. But let's talk about the Xavi in the midfield, because that seems to me that they've got ridiculous abundance of playmakers that like to play perhaps the holding midfielders as well in Busquets and Xavi Alonso, but they can't play them all. Is that a contentious point?
No, it means that they have got a lot of variety. I think what you might see is, I think you'll see Xavi Hernandez, Xavi Alonso and Busquets there as well, and Iniesta, but they've also got the chance to play Santi Cazorla as a high up the park midfield as well, just to add a bit of variety. And you've got Cesc Fabregas, Jesus Navas wide on the wing rather. So again, you can't have too many good players. It doesn't really matter if they're sitting on the bench. So I think it's going to be quite a standard midfield for Spain, but just those doubts over who's going to start up front.
Does Villa's absence not detract from the width as well? Because he obviously starts wide and plays in. He gives them a different option, didn't he, when he was playing for Spain? Then perhaps there's a tendency for them to come in. Even players like Silva like to occupy and matter that area of the centre of the field.
Yeah, they could be a little bit narrow, so I think you'll see Jesus Navas playing a part in most of the games if things aren't going too well. The plan B, which you could say Barcelona don't have, and they play in a similar style of Spain, of course, is this lack of big fella up front and the lack of the wide man to put the balls in. And you do have Sevilla's Jesus Navas, who's one of the best crossers of the ball in La Liga, and Llorente for that plan B. So Spain, in a sense, do have a plan B and a plan C as well, I think. So this is why I'm quite positive about their chances this year.
You're a bit too positive, I think.
Angus, have you got any thoughts to say to our friend online there, just because of the statistically how you think it'll play out? He's talking about narrow Spain. It'll be a narrow Italy. It always seems to be. Do you think it's going to be a very tight game?
Yeah, well, I think it's sure to be a tight game in my opinion, and I think both teams don't want to lose it. I think a draw is from the neutral point of view, is the obvious result here, because Italy would love a draw. Spain wouldn't be disappointed with a draw. It's a game which neither side want to win. They'll look to the other two games, Croatia and Italy, Croatia and Ireland. Nothing against them, but they'll look to them as a path through the group. This is a game where both sides would be very, very happy, I think.
Tim, thoughts on what Angus says there?
Yeah, I agree. I think Italy's record against Italy is not a good one. I think they haven't won a competitive game over 90 minutes in something like 90, 100 years. But they'll be looking for happy with a draw. It's been a tough couple of days for Spain as a country with the bailout news, and that's dominating the headlines at the moment, of course. So they'll be happy with a point, quite happy with a point against Italy. Always the bogey team for Spain, and then again, as you said, picking up two comfortable victories against Ireland, Croatia. I think that's the way it's going to work out.
Dominic, what do you think about that?
I think
the perception that Ireland will be a walkover.
I think what we've seen already in terms of Denmark and that result, and the fact that that Spain and Italy's of this world can't really take for granted any game.
Yeah, no.
I think it's crazy to think that way, because Croatia and Ireland can cause any team problems. I mean, Ireland
all these teams are going to be solid, and it's going to be. It's hard to see that many goals in this group, isn't it? Because of the way that the teams line up, very compact.
And I think,
but if we get an early goal in this game, that would really open the whole thing up.
I think the game starters, aren't they? It can be very slow starters.
Tactically speaking, Italy are going to line up with a 3-5-2, which is going to give them width, and that's facing the narrowness of Spain.
Yeah.
So why can't we see goals, and why can't we see Italy exploiting their chances on the wings? Because I think that's actually their best bet going forward.
Maybe Mario Balotelli explodes into life, and we see it. Tim, to round off before you depart, give us a steer then. What do you think? Spain, Italy, and then the group. Who finishes top of Group C?
I think I see Spain, Italy as 1-1, and I think I see Spain topping the group, of course, and going on to win the tournament.
Who's second? Who comes second?
With Italy. I think this group, yeah, we have seen some interesting results so far, but I do think that there's a big gap in quality between even Italy and the other sides.
Even Italy. The way you say
very,
that.
very tactical of you, Tim Stannard, 442 Spanish expert. Good to speak to you, sir. Enjoy the day's games, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Speak to you soon.
So there we have it. What do you make of that, Mina?
Well,
Because I think there are question marks about Spain. I wouldn't necessarily take Spain at, what is it, 11 to 4 thereabouts for Spain to win the tournament.
They're favourites to win the tournament, but I think this is before last night. Even though Germany's odds didn't contract too much after winning, people perhaps took a negative view on that win from Germany, even though we've discussed that.
Three major tournaments never been done in a row.
Italy is desperate to restore pride, because at the moment our fans are starting to lose hope with this, match fixing scandal, another one. But also what I want to point out with Italy going forward is that there isn't an obvious weakness. I think Spain have had a very hard season. You've had Barcelona, Madrid getting to the semi-finals. These players are relatively tired, and they're up against a sort of a backbone of Juventus that went undefeated this season. They know how to win. They know how to make a great performance. But on top of that, they're not tired because they didn't take part in any other competition except for Coppa Italia. So it's not like they've been playing every 3 days where they're exhausted. Mario Balotelli's been on the bench. And that
team familiarity of Juve we talked about with Russia is probably
exactly
key.
You have the back line of the Juventus back line. It's a formation that is different. The only side in this Euro 2012 that is playing a 3-5-2. It's going to be exciting to watch. And I think people, you can't ever sort of think that Pirlo's not going to do it on the big stage, and then you have other players like Buffon is great at leading the back. Chiellini is one of the best centre-backs in the world, can walk into any team, hands down, So why are we
going to see?
It's a big advert for Juventus here for the Serie A champions.
But
let's bring in Tancredi Palmieri, because it'd be interesting to see as an Italian journalist wandering the world. I think he's in Poland at the moment for us. What he makes of the situation. Mina, very positive about Italy, despite the disruption, despite the horrible form in the friendlies coming into this, which has been beaten by the USA, beaten by the Russia, beaten by Uruguay, which I suppose no disgrace in defeat to Uruguay. Tancredi, how positive are you about Italy in this game coming up in the tournament?
Well, I would like to, maybe it's kind of women positiveness, something like that, because honestly I'm completely the opposite about that. I can't remember being so pessimistic before a final tournament since I watched Italy, and I have memories of 1988, 1986, something like that.
You're always like this about the teams you support. I've never heard you be optimistic about a team you support. You're always like, no, we're going to lose, we're going to lose, we're going to lose, we're going to lose. And then you end up winning. So I'm not sure about you either, because when you like something so much, you tend to get worried too quickly.
Cesare Prandelli, talk to me about him. How do they set up Italy? Because he's apparently the only manager who doesn't know his formation, but we're talking about 3-5-2 now with De Rossi in defence.
Well, I tell you, you were telling Tancredi wandering in Poland, well, I'm in Gdansk, where Spain-Italy will be playing tonight, even if you can't see from just the bushes that are behind.
Nice bushes.
But here will be, a small historical event for Italian football will happen, because it's the first time ever that Italy will play in a final tournament with 3 men back in defense. Never happened. Of course, along a game you can change tactics, but never Italy approached a game with that kind of tactics. Plus, we must add that of these 3 men, one of these 3 is not even a defender. It's Daniele De Rossi, that is a midfielder. Now, you are going to play against Spain, that is one of the most offensive team on the planet, if not the most offensive at all, and you are going to play in such a tactics with few men that are able of marking. I hope that Prandelli got it right, of course, but it is a huge, honestly, a huge challenge in that way. Mina was go on.
Well, Tancredi, we'll get back to you in just a second, sir, and really analyse this game tactically, try and work out what Prandelli's doing. We're going to take a quick, short break now on the Eurozone. Back in a few moments' time, building up to Spain, Italy, and of course with Don McGuinness in the studio, Republic of Ireland against Croatia. See you again, and also Italian Owls coming up as well, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back to the Eurozone this Sunday morning. We've been up and at it for a while, discussing, dissecting what we've seen in the tournament so far with our guests in the studio. Dom McGuinness, who's woken up, joined us late, but in fine form and ready to talk about Republic of Ireland, Croatia in due course. We've got Mina Rzouki, who's fired up and feisty about Italy, and Angus Loughran, who's just cool and calm and statistically oriented, always with his betting analysis. We'll get onto the odds in a second. Tancredi Palmieri, Italian journalist who's out covering Euro 2012 at the moment. He's not in Hyde Park, despite the view behind him. He could be anywhere in the world. Let's talk now about the Italian Owls. You sent us a video about Italy's mood in the camp and how they're trying to approach this Spain game on the Italian steps in Rome. And not surprisingly, you've got dispute with a fellow Italian heritage here, Mina Rzouki, over the interpretation in Italian culture. Let's look at the video. Mina, as you're in the studio, perhaps you should talk us through what we're seeing in Rome and the Piazza di Spagna.
Well, firstly, do you get that it's Piazza di Spagna? So there's already that connotation because it's the Spanish steps.
Yeah.
It's basically, I believe it's 100 of them dressed up in Spain, wearing the jerseys, you know, the national team jersey of Spain, wearing, some of them have their names on the back, like Piqué, Albiol, etc. The owl is we're very superstitious about the owl in Italy. We think it's bad luck. So basically, by connecting the two together.
But they're such wise birds, though, aren't they? A wise old owl.
Yeah, but they're scary birds.
Scary?
I mean, in some cultures, if you're pregnant and you see an owl, it's likely that you lose the baby. I mean, that's what they say to you. Owls are very, I believe only England seem to not have that.
It's a positive impression of owls over here, seen as a kind of wise bird, a friendly farm bird. What do you think, Tancredi? What's your interpretation? Is Mina wrong, right? Somewhere close?
No, I mean, I was going to...
I could bring thing in, like, if you see owl with a baby. Come on! What are you talking
This is not
about?
Italian culture, but I'm telling you, in Italy, from what I understand, if you see an owl, you put someone else in front of you to walk ahead so that they will get the bad luck and not you. That's what I know.
Indeed.
Oh,
You know
so we
why?
agree.
Because the owl is standing on the tree, no? Like this. So we say that it's like we are standing on the shoulder of someone, waiting for him. You have to fail. You have to fail. You have to fail. And so this is what is happening. And they have this banner, something like Piqué, Ramos, and Albiol, we wish you a non-goal, and other things like that. It was very funny.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny.
I hope it will work.
Well, we've got the owls situation kind of covered there in corner. Apologies for the slight interruption, but of course, Tancredi live at the Euros in Gdansk. Go a little bit of interruption on the thing there, but 3-5-2. Mina, talk to Tancredi about this because he says it's a gamble, but you see it as a natural kind of answer to problems of Italian narrowness in the past and a lack of width.
Well, yeah, and it's also sort of a great formation to field when you against a Spanish team that is quite narrow in the way that they play their football too. But I do want to talk about the fact that 3-5-2 has been very popular in Serie A this season. It's been played on 215 occasions and it's got a 72% success rate.
Wow, good stat.
But I'm saying success meaning a draw as well. So, I mean, you only lose about a quarter of your games, you do lose them if you're playing 3-5-2. But most of the small teams have opted.
That compares better than 4-4-2 or
yeah,
other
but I mean,
formations.
most small teams have opted. There's only 3 teams that didn't actually play with a 3-man back line this season or even attempted it, and that was Chievo, Milan and Roma.
Yeah.
And perhaps if they did, they would have won it, because Napoli won a Coppa Italia on the basis of their 3-man back line. Juventus did very well when they meddled with that formation, but they wanted more of tactical flexibility. But it's a formation that I think suits the fact that we want to, Italy wants to bolster the midfield. You're facing a side that loves their midfield. You're giving your players a chance to exploit the width that they're going to leave behind. And on top of it, you have the back 3 that can stop perhaps your
and De Rossi can presumably step out of the back 3 and play a little bit as well.
He can act as a defensive midfielder to shield Pirlo, who can then push forward and create more as well. And then if the worst comes to the worst, you can bring on Ogbonna, who's a proper centre-back, and then push De Rossi up forward to do all the running.
Well, let's see.
Midfield.
Tancredi's looking around. I'm not sure what he's looking for, but Tancredi, what do you make of
owls?
Yeah, I think disrespectful to Mina Rzouki's tactical analysis there. What do you think of 3-5-2? Is it the answer that Prandelli stumbled across in the final moment before the tournament?
Well, reporting a very good thing because it's very used. Juventus part of the season won in that way. The thing is that you need huge pressing and a very dynamic attitude from the team.
Yes.
Italy, with Prandelli, changed their style that we are all used to watch when Italy is on the pitch, and they had much more ball possession, much more one-touch playing, but not that kind of dynamic that usually the kind of tactics request. It's all about, in 5 days, Prandelli has been able to involve enough the players to give them all on the pitch. We will see about that. I must tell you, Italian supporters that came here along are not that confident here. I mean, there is a huge majority of Spanish fans, at least in the city, we will see in the stadium, but Italian fans, they are saying, okay, we came here to enjoy the game because anyway, competitions are played once in South Africa, once in Brazil. It's not easy anymore to get close to some competition and watch it. We are here to enjoy that, but we know that we have to qualify against Croatia and Ireland. Today is just, in some way, just to attend a huge event.
Tancredi, I know you have obviously Pirlo, who is a world-class player, and few people would dispute that. But when I think of Italy, I think of the 10s that you've had, Baggio, Totti, and I wonder, looking at the team, do you lack that? Because you haven't had wingers, you haven't had that many sort of flying speed players, but you've always had that creative player. Do you lack that? Is that a big miss for Italy?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have been through generations in which we had at the same moment Baggio, Zola, Mancini, Totti, Del Piero, all these players in the same moment, in the same 5-6 years, more or less at their peak. And we have, not only we have on the bench people like that, we were not even calling them up because there was no space. And now we had, our 3 stars that were Cassano, Balotelli, and Giuseppe Rossi. Giuseppe Rossi is injured. Cassano has been out for 6 months because of the heart problems, and we are compelled just to rely on them. There is also this Giovinco, that is a new star on the bench. It could be good, but how different is the situation compared with the last 20 years? That it's another reason why, not because I'm playing a character, but why I'm so pessimistic.
Okay,
do they have good enough players fundamentally to win, to get through?
No, they don't have a star team like they did in all the seasons that they've won things, but what I do think is that they don't have an obvious weakness the way that, say, Netherlands do in their backline or Poland. They are balanced all in all. It's nothing, no star quality, but if they play collectively, I don't see major holes in their team. But I do think that Cassano, I know that he's just recovered from injury, but he's done well in the last few games that he did play for Milan.
Yeah.
I do think, I mean, I'm not, maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but I think he is an exceptional creative talent. And when he's on his game, he can be the best that I've ever seen. The problem with him is that he's not consistent, and he can't always provide that.
Like Balotelli, though, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
But absolutely is the most decisive player that will be on the pitch. That's the reason why Prandelli never gave up about calling him up. That's the reason why he's starting. But all in all, he will be able to play against Spain. He will be able to play probably no more than 55, maybe 60 minutes. And, you know, in 3 days there is another game. Then in 4 days there is another game. In a competition like this, you need that all these things just go all together.
Yeah, but you're missing out Diamanti, then you've got Giovinco, who's had a terrific season. There's no reason to see why they won't have creativity.
Guys, I know this discussion, this debate between Mina Rzouki and Tancredi Palmieri will rumble and roll on and probably hit an intensity, hopefully, in the latter stage of the tournament for both of you as Spain and Italy both get through. Tancredi, thank you for your time today. We'll let you go to enjoy the wonders of Gdansk. Before you go, give me a prediction for Spain, Italy.
Wow. A prediction about Italy. Okay, you really don't want me bad. Okay, I will tell you this prediction. In the 3 games that they played at Euro Championship, Italy and Spain will score just 1 goal. So my prediction, I would go for an under. Under
2.5 goals. Tancredi, fair enough. Thank you. A safe bet there. We'll catch up with you soon. Our Italian correspondent out at Euro 2012. Mina, take a moment to compose yourself after that one, and let's quickly talk, because we haven't discussed it, Croatia against the Republic of Ireland, and he's saying not many goals in Spain, Italy. These two sides met last year and it was 0-0, Dom. Would you take that again, or do you think this is the must-win for the Republic?
I think the Irish can raise their game against the teams that are meant to roll them over, as we've seen with Italy. You're right in terms of friendlies and everything else, but I do think that they can frustrate teams. You know, I mean, obviously failing last time at the very last stage in terms of playoffs against France, but they showed how they can play against superior teams.
Yeah.
Croatia and the Republic are reasonably level pegging in terms of people looking at this
they'll
one. Even though Croatia way ahead,
they'll bank up against each other, won't they?
But Croatia, in terms of the rankings as well, obviously way ahead.
Yeah.
But when you look at this, and people are talking about Modric and Jelavic because they're the guys that we see all the time as key players in
Olic is injured though, isn't he?
Yeah, Olic, yeah, but Jelavic and obviously Modric. And looking at that and thinking, people are thinking, a lot of people would say this is a draw all over. I don't know. I don't think it's must win. I think it's must not lose for both sides. And I think either
Interesting,
Italy or
3 draws might get you.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think Spain and Italy are overlooking Croatia and Ireland is a big mistake. Either of them, I think, can post a shock against either of those sides.
Well, let's talk about the straight forecast group, Steve, and Angus Loughran's thoughts on the odds here as well, because the winners Spain, runners-up Italy, obviously that would be the favourite. You'd imagine that, wouldn't you, given the history and standing of the nations, 15-8. Spain, Croatia, 10-3. Italy, Spain, 11-2. We have to go down to the 6-1 shot for Ireland to even be mentioned in the top 2. Spain,
which is the way they want it.
Yeah, I mean, would that be? I mean, would you, Dom? Would that take your interest perhaps at 6-1? I don't know.
Stranger things have happened, and I do think that I don't fancy Spain at all this tournament. No.
Do you think just the history thing of not a third tournament that stretched too far, like France in 2002?
I do love a row as well. I mean, a PK Ramos. I don't believe that.
But we were talking about a lot of us don't like ticky-tacky football as well, do we? So
exactly. I don't think it. When I say I like a row, I love all the hype around these kind of tournaments. In terms of they don't get on, it doesn't matter a jot. Those two guys will play perfectly fine, whether they like each other or not. But I do like all that nonsense that you get around. The Dutch usually fall out, and it's great when you get all these kind of situations. But no, I don't fancy Spain for the tournament. I do think Italy are a stronger bet, but I do fancy Ireland to post a big shock in this group.
Yeah,
and listening to Tancredi and listening to a lot of people and Spanish journalists that I've been talking to, Ireland don't even feature, which is fabulous.
Yeah. Angus, your thoughts? Should Ireland be considered more because of their record, 14 competitive matches?
I actually think that Ireland have a big chance in this group.
Really?
I do. I mean, and I think today, when you look at, if you're looking at a bet, really, I mean, there's the straight forecast. But I mean, we've discussed these two games today.
Yeah.
You can get just over 5-2, the double on the 2 games, both having 2 goals or less. To me, that's a very, very fair price.
Dom, is that the issue with Ireland? Is goal scoring? Robbie Keane's record is phenomenal for his country, but it hasn't been in form for the LA Galaxy of late, and perhaps you haven't got creative force in midfield there.
No, there are strikers that don't score goals. I mean, if you're looking at the likely scenario of a Doyle-Keane combination, I mean, the hard working, the toilers,
Should Shane Long play? Because a lot of people say that.
There's lots of childish comments going up. Pirlo, Balotelli, Long, Cox.
Oh no, we'll leave that one out.
But in terms of the Irish side, there are not goals galore there.
Yeah.
So it's a case of trying to grind out, get in there, try and grind out results and nick a goal here and there, a set piece.
Trophies.
Well, of course it does. And again, go back to Richard Dunn, which it doesn't make any sense. The Ireland team doesn't make any sense when you look at it and think, how can they upset Spain?
He wouldn't get in a pub team, would he, if you saw Richard Dunn's attributes? But yet he does it on the big stage repeatedly.
It's showing St Ledger.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, McGeady has been underwhelming in Russia, but he has kind of clicked into gear a little bit for the Irish side, which is great. But no, I mean,
James McLean, should he get a run out then if McGeady's underwhelming?
He'll start on the bench. He will come on because I think Ireland will need.
But I think you mentioned one thing there, Dom. I mean, the performance of the tournament really in the qualifying, I thought, was Ireland's heroics on that day in Moscow, because I thought they were absolutely superb. And we saw a performance there that suddenly went, hang on, we've got to take this country seriously on the world stage, even though they may not score that many goals, they may not necessarily play the offensive football, but they are a very, very hard team to beat.
Certainly are. Interesting, Giovanni Trapattoni modelled this team, he says, on the 2004 Greece squad and the formation, things like that. We'll talk more about Ireland-Croatia in just a few moments' time. The debate hotting up here on the Eurozone. Join you again in a few moments. Welcome back to the Eurozone, the continentally flavoured Sunday show throughout the course of the tournament. 16 teams in it, but it goes up to 24, and perhaps we'll talk about that with our panel now. Dom McGuinness, Mina Rzouki and Angus Loughran. In 2016, I should say, it goes up to 24 teams in France. Controversial that France got it in the first place, and Michel Platini is the president of UEFA. But this is such a fantastic tournament. Surely we're going to diminish it, aren't we, guys? Angus, what do you think?
I think it's going to be great in France. I mean, I think it's a great venue to hold this tournament. But, I was lucky enough. One of the first trips I made, young lad, I went out in '84.
Yeah.
It was 8 teams in France. Now they've trebled the size in.
The quality hasn't been diluted, has it? We've got a very.
I think that 24 teams is too much for a Euro. I think the format of 16 actually really works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's symmetrical. There's 4 groups of 4. We know where we stand. Your first and second progress. It's knockout, quarter-final, semi-final, and a final. It's great. It works. 24 teams. There's a logistics. There's a lot of games. I mean, if you can qualify in third place. I mean, it just means.
Well, look at the games we've had this weekend, I suppose, can't you? You can look at Germany, Portugal, two of the best teams in the world, ranked in the top 10. You talk about the Netherlands, Denmark, ranked in the top 10. You talk about Spain, Italy, 2 of the greatest teams throughout world history in terms of following and lustre. And
I know there's a lot of nations that would love to be part of it, and countries like Belgium. I mean, they wouldn't want to miss out on being in France. It's next door.
Well, they should do better.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. They've got a good squad, Belgium, as well, to be fair, as the case is.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the 16 format.
No.
And I do think, obviously, greed comes into play. There are matches to be played and there's money to be made. But, you do dilute it. We'll always have this
speaking as an Englishman, we weren't even there 4 years ago, but still, it's...
24 teams, you just never know anyway.
You're going to start having basically, the teams that won't qualify will be like the Faroe Islands, but everyone else will, I mean,
there will be a big name that potentially doesn't make it, like England, if we can call ourselves a big name 4 years ago, but
the qualifiers have to be interesting too.
Yeah.
If the qualifiers are a shoo-in, then that lessens
why not scrap the qualifiers and just throw them all into the main tournament?
The qualifiers, the 24 teams will definitely affect the qualifiers, in my opinion. For sure.
Because Portugal only came through the playoffs, didn't they, as well? They got edged out by Denmark.
How many times do we say, are the Euros actually better? Is it a harder competition to win than the World Cup? I mean, Greece would show you maybe not.
Well, I suppose it's 6 games, so you've got that rapid fire, so you have that.
You've got to hit the ground running, and it's an intensity that you get straight away with the Euros, and it seems that, I mean, look what we've seen already. There's lots to chat ahead of the tournament. Bang, straight in.
But it's going to impact the big leagues as well, because these players are going to be exhausted after a heavy season. Then they're going to have to play so many games. Then they're back to another heavy season. And if you're playing for England or Spain or Italy or Germany, you're going to be exhausted by the end of
the
this.
Republic of
Injuries or Ireland, of course. You're going to be injured most likely.
And it lessens the kudos of a team like Republic of Ireland achieving a berth at the European Championships as well, doesn't it? So let's talk about Group D. And England are there, aren't they? So they've done it. That's a success of sorts, I suppose, after what we saw under Steve McLaren 4 years ago. Going to game against France will caught a lot of attention. Sweden against Ukraine as well, though, for reasons looking at the host nation. Thoughts on Group D initially, Mina? Where would your money be?
France.
Yeah.
I think they're a very good team. I don't think they're going to necessarily win because, once again, I'm not happy with their centre-back pairing, but their defence is a little suspect to me.
What, pace-wise, or just the organisation?
Well, Mexes is beaten for pace. I'm not sure about Evra at all. I think Clichy's a better bet. They don't have another full-back on the other side that's worth it. And I think Adel Rami has had a rather average season. So I'm not quite sure. There's so many weaknesses in that back line that I can think that if you're a very attacking team and you go for it, there's a very good chance that you'll manage it.
Well, let's bring in a French expert. Lord James from Northern Ireland. Lord, talk about France coming in 22 games unbeaten. How positive is the mood under Laurent Blanc at the moment? Oh, don't think we can get Laura at the moment. We'll try and renew that connection. But it is quite a feat that's been achieved by Blanc, is it not, after what we saw? You mentioned Patrice Evra at the World Cup 2 years ago, Don.
This is a guy that has a huge standing in that squad, but I would agree that I think Clichy is probably the better bet. I think many people that watch Manchester United on a regular basis would say that there's been creaks in Evra's game for a while.
Switches off defensively sometimes is the argument, isn't it?
But, it is almost a situation in that French squad that you have like John Terry, the standing within the players, as we know from the mutiny of South Africa. And, he does have that kind of respect amongst his peers there, but if you're talking a selection, I think really Clichy.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Clichy.
Attacking-wise, obviously, Blanc just puts all his hopes in terms of carrying Benzema as a focal point up front, and then Ribery and Nasri play off him. Is it a tough game plan to counter, or is it one that England, perhaps with this solid Roy Hodgson side that he's shown in the first 2 friendlies, could could counter.
Other than Germany, I think, and possibly in the Netherlands, it's an embarrassment of riches for France. But you're talking about men who know how to play with each other, and I think Benzema is one of the most mobile strikers that you've got playing. I think Ribéry's been in terrific form, and this is possibly the chance that he will perform on the big stage as well as just for club. And then you've got Nasri. You can have. There's so many different alternatives. My point is that they need to get the midfield right so that they can provide to the attack as well as secure the defence. Yeah,
good record coming in the friendlies as well. Let's bring in Lord James now over Skype then, Northern Irish, but an expert on all matters French. How positive is the Le Bleu camp? Do they believe they can win this tournament as one of the outsiders?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. There's a sense that any difficulties they endured during 2010 have been ironed out successfully. I heard you there talking about Ribéry. Franck Ribéry is probably the greatest example of someone who's completely turned things around for himself since Laurent Blanc took over as manager. Quietly confident is probably fair, even though an awful lot of quotes have come out from Laurent Blanc himself saying we're not going to underestimate England. We're not the favourites. Refusing to say that, as any other manager would.
How key Benzema and then the form that he's brought in, because he's finally found his feet at Real Madrid this season, hasn't he? That presumably is a massive boost for France.
There's a lot of examples of that throughout the French team of players who on paper are excellent but just haven't particularly done it at club level. France will line up with Ribéry on the left, Nasri on the right, and Benzema playing as a striker. That system has been taken on brilliantly by the French side, and I heard you mention the run of unbeaten games, and Benzema will be essential in that.
Well, obviously, they've also got the backup plan in Oliver Giroud going forward. But what I wanted to ask you is that as much as they've sort of restored some harmony to the team, they did have trouble finding a captain, sort of a real leader on the pitch that can pull that team together when they are, say, the chips are down and they need someone to rally the troops. But what about Blanc's problems with the backroom staff, with the directors, with the French FA? I know he's not very happy with them. Is this going to eventually cause problems for the French team?
It risks doing so, absolutely, Mina. In 2010, it was the FFF which withdrew France from the World Cup. It was them that said, right, you're coming back with your tails between your legs. Don't underestimate the possibility of them throwing their weight around once again if they don't behave.
Well, what about defensive weakness? Mina Rzouki's raised that. Is that an issue? Is that something that's been discussed in French football circles?
Yeah, again, the defence in theory could be a little bit weak in places, but personally, I think it's the midfield that isn't playing together. Philippe Mexis is. Some would even say he divides opinion, but he's always been a strong fixture as far as Blanc is concerned. So a possibility of maybe bringing in Koscielny from Arsenal is discussed, but I can't see Blanc doing that.
But then, the thing with Mexes is in his last friendly, I thought he was terrible. I mean, they were so lucky to not have conceded in that. But then even if they bring Koscielny, you've still got Adel Rami, who's had a very average season. So, I mean, if there's if the likes of Welbeck play or, even Carroll, surely they fancy their choices.
Well, who would France fear most? Who would France fear most for England?
Hasn't had a dreadful season. Adil Rami hasn't had a dreadful season. He's the strongest centre-back which France have an option for. At Valencia, he's not been doing too badly.
No, I mean, it's not a dreadful season by all means, but surely he's just considered average.
Probably.
A lot of teams will take average. I think England will be one of them.
Netherlands would take average at this moment.
To be fair,
there will be threats as far as England is concerned. Gerrard obviously remains a huge threat from midfield. Ashley Young proving to be a match winner. He has the ability, obviously, to come from nowhere and score goals. And Andy Carroll will certainly give any opponent a hard time in the French defence.
Now, England is for the first time ever, we're not favourites with the bookmakers in this country to win a tournament. So it's been very interesting that develop. Yeah, but what's the French perspective on their dangers in the group? Do they see all the three teams as much of a muchness, or do they rank England and Sweden above the Ukraine? How do they view it?
Yes, certainly. France consider England to be the greatest group opponents. Absolutely. Sweden, durable. tough to break down. Ukraine as host, you never really know what you'll get from host opposition. But certainly England is the game that everybody wants to get out of the way as far as France is concerned.
Who would France rather face in terms of personnel? Because of the discussion in England, we think Danny Welbeck will get the nod, but obviously Andy Carroll's come into the reckoning and played well of late. Would France prefer to face Welbeck or Carroll? What do you think?
Ooh.
Given their limitations in defence, is either an aerial threat, I suppose, or more of an athletic threat?
Yeah.
Both of them.
Welbeck perhaps in that respect that it would be easier to break down, and Carroll's going to have a greater threat from set play or something, getting onto the end of a corner, for instance. So probably Welbeck.
Fair enough. And Mina, any tactical observations you'd like to put to Lara about how the game might play out Monday?
No, I genuinely believe that France have a really great chance of going for it. But I mean, with Hodgson's, but with you really want them to win then? But with Hodgson's defensive solidity, I don't know. I don't rate teams that don't have a great back line, and I don't rate their back line.
Do France need to win this group, this game, because of the potential, I suppose, to face Spain in the first knockout stage?
Yes, to face Spain in the first knockout stage, but also just because of the great amount of hype that's been created around France in the respect that, it looks like one of the weakest sides England's field in an international tournament, and in terms of France, they've done an awful lot of rebuilding and trying to gather strength. So, just really for bragging rights as well as proving a point.
Well, Lord, quickly give us a prediction for the game tomorrow and France's progress in the tournament, how far they get.
I think France will win 2-0.
Wow.
And I think we'll get to the semi-finals.
Fair enough. France get semi-finals. Le Bleu all the way. Laura, fantastic to speak to you. Enjoy it. We'll catch up with you soon. No doubt.
If they get to the semi-finals, they'll have to defeat either Italy or Spain, or possibly Republic of Ireland.
Or possibly, yeah. Anyway, who knows going to go there?
Croatia.
We'll talk about that.
We'll
talk about that in due course. France have beaten England in the last 5 meetings, so perhaps no great shakes. A lot of people are predicting them to do so again. We'll be back in just a second on the Eurozone, looking at the Group D predictions. Welcome back to the Eurozone. We're on to the final furlong now. We're looking at Group D, reflecting, of course, on the first couple of days of the tournament. Looking forward to the 4th day of it tomorrow now. And in terms of the betting, Angus, the forecast for what we're going to see, where would you think the smart money would perhaps be in this group?
Well, I mean, the thing about this group is that you've got English punters have not gone in head first and backed England all the time, but yeah, I mean, France to win
it's the key.
Yeah, France to win it is the key. Most people are being very negative about Ukraine, despite the fact that they're the host nation.
What about France, Sweden at 17-2? That's
well,
not
you
bad,
see,
is it?
a lot. If you fancy France to win the group, they're I think 4-1 the favourite. I think that's a fair price.
Yeah,
I think those two could well come through first and second. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see it end up that way.
Interesting, Mina, though, if France and England sort of see out a stalemate tomorrow, if Sweden then beat Ukraine, you've kind of got an interesting situation, momentum perhaps with the Swedes, and it becomes difficult for France and England.
Well, you see, this is the thing. I think everyone sort of discounted Sweden, but I actually think they have quite a good team, and they're very unpredictable. You don't know how they're going to set out.
Yep.
They have a new formation by playing Ibra behind the striker, and I think they're a side that will bully you into getting what they want. So there's every chance that they could qualify ahead of say, England.
Talk of bullying, don't we? In English, we sort of demean Ibrahimovic's record because perhaps he hasn't performed against English sides in the Champions League. But actually, comment from Breda Hangeland after the Norway game said
he did against Arsenal.
He said that England looked suspect on crosses, and that Ibrahimovic could possibly exploit that, which it's rare for an English team because it's one of the rare things we kind of take some pride in.
It's turned on its head a little bit anyway, hasn't it, in terms of expectation, in terms of where England's strengths are now and everything else. And yeah, you're right. But I think you look at the likes of Ibrahimovic, who people are very quick to criticise him. Champions League, he's been a success everywhere he's been.
Thank you.
Yeah, he keeps winning
everywhere.
He's a great player. I mean, England's record in Sweden's appalling, apart from the friendly that they had at Wembley when they beat them just after they were on a high after beating Spain in that friendly in November. But aside from that, in competitive games, Sweden have denied England on more than one occasion, and you could be right. I mean, if England and France is a draw and Sweden win, Sweden are in a good position in that group.
Yeah, Sweden caused lots of pain. Let's get the predictions then, because we have got some from the team, and I got a call from the producer. We'll get to mine in a moment, so I'll get my excuses early. I didn't have much time to think about it, Mina. Let's get your predictions first that you've gone with then. So Group A to win it. Now I think this is a pretty home and dry one, isn't it? Russia for most people. You've gone for that, Mina.
Yep.
And then talk us through the rest of what you're looking at here.
Well, I've gone for Russia because I think the rest of that group, there's weaknesses in all of them. Russia's probably the most solid as a unit. Germany, because I think if football was fair, they'd win the entire tournament.
Really? Poor
yes.
defence, though?
Poor centre-back pairing, but still enough quality to overlook that. Spain, I've gone for it because I didn't want to put Italy and get embarrassed. And then France, finally, because I think there's no greater attack. And I love the coach. I think he's fabulous. Germany to win the tournament, yes, definitely. Embarrassment of riches everywhere going forward.
To beat who in the final, would you say?
You see, I don't know how it goes, but they would. It's very possible that they will. Probably France.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they will face them in the semi-finals, but.
And you've banked on Klose knocking out Gomez in the starting 11.
Yes, because I mean, obviously, you just saw from Gomez playing yesterday. Surely this isn't the man that should lead the German
He scored a
attack.
great header, didn't he?
Klose is quick with his feet. This is possibly his last chance to do something special for the national team. He knows how Podolski works. He knows how Müller works. Go for him all the way, and I genuinely think he's a goal scorer.
Angus, rattle through your predictions for us.
Well, I went with an outsider for the Golden Boot, but I was delighted that he scored in the first game. And
Lewandowski.
I've gone for an outsider in Group C because I just think,
Ireland to win it.
Well, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Really? That is phenomenal.
I mean, I wouldn't be at all surprised if through
But
defensive.
what attack, though?
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to need that much of attack.
So they're going to just park the bus the whole way?
Well, I mean, no, not to win the whole competition.
No, I know, but to win Group C, I mean, you're talking about Spain and Italy.
But yeah, exactly. I think there could be one goal in each
Everyone's got to have an opinion. He set the cat amongst the pigeons. There, let's get my predictions now, which I'm not sure about at all. I did this off the hoof in about 20 seconds yesterday. So I've gone Russia, I've gone Germany, because I do feel after the win yesterday they'll probably edge it. Italy, and now you're happy with that, Mina?
Oh, I'm so
I thought
happy
they'd sneak a win. I know they beat Spain, got a good record against Spain as well, and they beat them last year in a friendly, so I thought maybe with the whole despair in the country might turn for them and they'll kind of rally against it. We've got France. I did that, so I hope that England actually win that group, but I kind of did that as reverse psychology. Champions France is on a similar theme, and I thought if I'm going to go that way, I'll go Karim Benzema, top scorer, best player, Samir Nasri.
Nasri? You think will perform on this occasion?
Again, this was
He's been
under
a
pressure from
massive
the producer in
disappointment,
my
hasn't he,
ear.
club-wise.
Yeah,
He's owed a
I'm hoping he delivers me. Go on, give us your predictions quickly.
I think Germany for the tournament.
Yeah.
In terms of Angus and Ireland, I think Italy for the group, but I do think Ireland can sneak through, and which would knock out Spain, which is crackers, obviously. But as I said before, I just got a feeling that Spain. No, and I think France possibly will top that. England will crawl through.
Quickly winners today: Spain, Italy, Ireland, Croatia, or draws.
Italy.
Who's first?
Ireland 1-0, and the other game a draw.
I can see Ireland being dragged down. They'd be better with Spain
Quickly,
and
Dom.
Italy. 0-0, Ireland and Croatia.
0-0 Ireland, Croatia as those last year. That's it for the Eurozone. Thank you for joining us this Sunday. Back again next week, slightly later, 10 p.m. Next show on Sports Tonight Live, Chris Cohen and Nigel Spackman, which is the Euro Fan Zone. Goodbye for now. Hello, welcome along to the Eurozone show. This focusing on Euro 2012 and not the financial meltdown on the continent. We are looking at the football from a continental perspective, though. 2 days in to the tournament. Where is the money? What do we think about it? We're going to have Ukrainian cats. We're going to have Thai children singing. And I think we're also going to have, I'm told, Italian owls. And Mina Rzouki, one of our guests in the studio, and of course regular on the channel, will be giving her thoughts on the owls and everything else as well. Angus Loughran here with his stats and his aficionado insight into the game will join us as well. Guys, welcome. Good to see you this Sunday morning, bright and early. Got the coffees out. Mina, I don't think you've been to bed. You've just come back from Soho, have you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much.
I've just been out all night.
Quick reaction, guys. 2 days down, we've seen 9 goals in 4 games, but perhaps it doesn't reflect the total drama. Have you enjoyed it, Mina?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think you've had everything so far. I think you've had red cards, you've had drama, you've had controversy, especially in that first match. You've had some great goals, and you've had some upsets, obviously, with Holland and Denmark, although I don't think that was such a huge upset as everyone's making it seem. But I think it's been great so far, and I'm so excited for today.
What have you made of it, Angus? You've been crunching your numbers and looking at it, and I suppose not a massive amount of goals, apart from Russia running riot on the first evening of the tournament, but entertainment, the Holland as well yesterday, 28 attempts on goal in their defeat.
Yeah, no, it has been a very entertaining start. I mean, the first game, I thought Poland were going to win the first game, and certainly when they took the lead through a player who'd been touted as one to watch, everything seems to be going well for them, especially when Greece down to 10 men, but it did show us that anything's possible in this tournament when Greece come back to get that crucial point. Russia proved that their win against Italy in the build-up wasn't a fluke.
Some people, 3-0, yeah.
Some people were looking at that result sceptically, but I think Dick Advocaat's got a very well-balanced unit with the Russians, and that was an impressive performance. I mean, the Czechs will try and look back to '96 when, of course, they were decisively beaten by Germany in the first game and went on to reach the final. So
yeah,
that will be their motivation if I was involved with the Czechs, but it'll be a hard way for them. And then, of course, yesterday, Germany getting a crucial win, but not impressively. I mean, Gomez...
Well, yeah, let's talk about what we think about yesterday as well, because...
Well, Gomez...
What do you think? Germany's second favourites, they won yesterday, but does it convince you enough to back them? They're 3-1, I think, pre-tournament with the bookmakers.
If anything, it makes me back them even more. What I was so scared about with Germany was that they were going to go all out attack. They are an embarrassment of riches. They have a very sort of soft centre-back pairing. I'm not that impressed with Badstuber.
Yeah.
I don't think Boateng, for example, as a fullback is particularly
Ronaldo
great.
gave him some problems yesterday, didn't he?
Exactly. Per Mertesacker, I wasn't happy with, but obviously they played Matt Hummels, who I think is absolutely wonderful. So I was scared that they were going to play the Dutch way, so it was going to be all
deep into this tournament, yes.
James, quick thoughts on the other side. I know you're giving us a German perspective, but before you go, Cristiano Ronaldo and Robin van Persie, from what you saw yesterday, much vaunted, of course, pre-tournament, and with our Premier League hats, and we know all about them, but what is your assessment of their games?
Yeah, Ronaldo certainly surprised me because I was expecting him to really try and attack Jerome Boateng, because everyone was naming that as a weak point in the German starting lineup, but we rarely saw him really go one-on-one, and granted that's also down to Germany's efficiency, the fact they managed to double up on him. Yeah. But there wasn't, he didn't have that normal verve about his game that I'm used to seeing from Ronaldo. Van Persie, you can say the same thing. It was almost like his confidence up front had gone a little bit, and granted there were a few comical errors, in terms of him slipping over at the crucial moment, but it just wasn't really as explosive a performance from both of these players as we were expecting, because we were expecting them to really announce themselves on the European stage at this tournament early on, and they both had chances to, if we're honest, as well.
Yeah, it's almost bizarre, isn't it? It looks like Van Persie prefers being with weaker players and being a big fish to swap on, and Ronaldo maybe flourishes better with better club players alongside him, bigger names alongside him at club level. James, fantastic to talk to you. I know we've got to let you go because you're off to work, sir. Enjoy it.
I am. Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Great
Bye,
stuff.
James.
James Thorogood from Bundesliga.com. Very interesting to hear that perspective. Confidence in Germany, but I think there's still doubts there, particularly for making them second favourites in the tournament. Angus, your thoughts from a betting perspective? Where would your money be?
Well, I think what you saw last night was very much German efficiency over German verve, but we weren't going to really see that when Gomez was named up front on his own. I mean, I think that when Klose might well be used in this tournament, and I think if Klose is used, the game becomes much more offensive. The interesting thing about the Dutch game coming up is that what tactics will Germany do? They'd love it, as long as they don't lose that. I mean, they'd actually like, in a lot of ways, to know that
beating Denmark in their final.
Yeah,
game,
but if they beat the Dutch, they know that it's not just beating the Dutch; it's knocking the Dutch out.
Yeah.
Now that's, I mean,
a big old rivalry as well, there, isn't it? To be fair,
I mean, that's a big incentive. There was a colossal rivalry between the two, and that mustn't be underestimated. That the significance now of it's a must-win for Holland.
It is
but
must-win.
that's scared German. That's scared Joachim Löw, and he's like very terrified of the fact that before maybe Holland was going to take off their break, allow the fact that Germany will win that because they're favourites. Now it's do or die, and that's going to terrify the Germans because
well, it makes it great for us, doesn't it? We'll talk more about this in just a few moments' time. Do get involved as well on Twitter at Sports Tonight TV. You can also call us 0207 291 0865. Fascinating discussion after a fascinating couple of days at Euro 2012. Join us again on the Eurozone in a few moments' time. Welcome back to the Eurozone, your Sunday morning show, the only place to be throughout Euro 2012 as we reflect on what's happened, what's going to happen, and flavour it with some opinion and some coffee. We've had our coffee in the breaks and hopefully we're raring to go, fired up.
All them do yesterday was take a much more organised and disciplined approach, and as you said, Mina, that almost makes them an even more dangerous team in this tournament. No, this wasn't the razzmatazz performance that maybe some people were expecting with several goals, but the fact is, as you said, efficiency was the key yesterday for Jogi Löw, and while he cut a bit of a frustrated figure on the sidelines at times, he was ultimately pleased with what his team did. He praised their defence, and just to talk about Mario Gomez again, his record 44 goals in 59 games for club and country this season, I think really speaks for itself as well.
Yeah, he didn't play well in the Champions League final.
He hardly touched the ball last night. I mean, if you look at it, I mean,
yeah.
I felt last night.
They always play. Don't Germany always play a striker, going back to Gerd Müller, who can't do anything but score goals? They have that one man who's given the licence. Everyone else works hard, and then they have a Closer or they have a Gomez who just. He
probably touched the ball less than a dozen times in the match, which is, I mean, it really was a remarkable effort. I mean, he scored this goal, but he didn't really know he was involved at all, did you?
No, you didn't. And I just wonder what the Dutch would have made it. Because you say that it was an efficient performance overall, but Pepe hits the crossbar in the first half, and then we had Varela with that chance. The keeper smothers that. Maybe a bit more composure, could have scored for Portugal. Nani had a shot blocked at the end, had a cross. I know it was a bit fortuitous to hit the crossbar. Will the Dutch look at that and think perhaps next game they can exploit some weaknesses back there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got you look at the Dutch front line, Robben, Van Persie, Afellay, Schneider, those types of players will be licking their lips at the prospect of going up against a Boateng out wide, for instance. And while Portugal really did do a good job of that, especially down the left, Boateng wasn't really troubled by Ronaldo or Contral, more so Contral than Ronaldo. But it was a really interesting thing to see that Boateng really did slot in on the right-hand side fairly effectively. Meanwhile, Holland, they'll be looking at that back line thinking they can attack it, but the Germans will be thinking the same of the Dutch.
Yeah, I think, if anything...
Over goals in that game then, yeah.
I think the Holland back line is just, I think it's probably one of the weakest in the competition. But going forward, I just think, what do Germany feel about the fact that they haven't had much time together to really drill tactics, and also there's... Schweinsteiger's recovering, Klose's recovering, Per Mertesacker's recovering. What about that? Are they confident going forward after that display yesterday? I mean, there haven't really been the razzmatazz like you said, but are they still confident of their chances?
Would they beat Spain?
It was interesting only because yesterday was the first day that I saw German flags out on top of cars and things like that. And at other tournaments when they've been going on, the build-up has been a lot more intense, let's say. And the fact is the German public, their expectations are very high. Now, the German national team after last night will feel that they can win this tournament, no doubt. My concern is whether Gomez is the guy that's going to lead you to a tournament win. That's my only question still remaining. But the fact is their confidence will have been built by last night's performance because it was so disciplined. And given that this is the youngest average age side in the tournament, that was really important for them to show their maturity yesterday, I think. And really, they might not be playing with that counter-attacking football that's going to tear teams apart, but the fact is they still know how to grind out a result. This is still Germany we're talking about in a tournament, so you can never really write them off. And the fact is they should go...
Mina Rzouki, Angus Loughran still with me. And Mina, I know you're fired up on a particular subject. It does get my goat a little bit, how Cristiano Ronaldo takes an inordinate amount of flack and saying he underachieves on the big stage. But I thought he had a decent game. Maybe not the game that a best player in the world might have, but he hasn't got much support, has he, for Portugal?
This is the thing. I think people are very unfair. You talk about the fact that there's so many players don't do it on the big stage. As we've witnessed with Van Persie, we say this all the time about Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Messi was even criticised about how he performs for his national team. But with Ronaldo, more than anyone else, I mean, Van Persie's flanked by stars. Messi's flanked by possibly the best squad in the world. And Zlatan Ibrahimovic, yes, perhaps he is not flanked by stars, but I really feel sorry for Ronaldo. You could see yesterday that he was frustrated. He was lifting his hands.
Made a lot of runs where he didn't receive the ball. He was throwing him off the ball, particularly the wide shots you saw on television,
Yeah.
that he was actually pulling off defenders, and there's not the sort of vision there to play him
Exactly.
in.
And under his last coach, there was so much responsibility on him to just do everything. Except he's trying to do everything without a number 10, without a proper number 9, and he's got Postiga really to be the striker that does everything. There's no deep lying midfielder. There's no creative talent. But what I like so much about Portugal, as opposed to all the other teams, including Netherlands, is that they know who they are. They know that they're a defensive team. They know that they haven't got much talent going forward in terms of creation.
They looked better going forward at the end, didn't they, the game? It's an argument
They
you
did,
can
because
make.
I like Oliveira. He's brilliant. He's the youngster coming through, and there was more attacking movements. But they know that the best chance they have is to play counter-attacking football because they've got a wonderful defence. That's something most of those people in that group don't have. I'm not even that sure about Denmark's defence, even though they did do very well in the last 20 minutes of the game, especially in their match. But they know who they are, so they're going to sit back and defend, go on the counter-attack, use the width and the pace of their two wingers, Nani and Ronaldo, and go for it. But then this is the thing, like, you have to understand that Ronaldo is flanked by guys who don't really know what they're doing, and a midfield that's very... How can you say it? Very
limited,
like...
Matinho, Morelos, workmanlike, industrious,
workmanlike,
plodding,
nothing going forward.
Pedestrian,
exactly, simple.
Well, let's continue this debate with Andy Brassel, European football expert, who joins us now via Skype. Andy, good to talk to you. A little bit of interference there, I'm not sure the connection's like. Andy, your thoughts on Cristiano Ronaldo? Of course, on the night, as Angus has been talking about this morning, that Lionel Messi scores a hat-trick for Argentina against Brazil. There will be those comparisons still made. How did you rate his showing?
Do you think he can hear us?
I don't think old Andy can hear us. It is early doors on a Sunday. He's just firing up his computer. We'll get back to him in just a second. But Angus, you talked about this with you, and we've been watching the goals this morning. I know you watched it live. I think New York Giant Stadium last night. Lionel Messi hat-trick against Brazil, and he always seems to upstage Cristiano, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the timing of it was perfect, really. I mean, like the Portugal game had just finished, and I think many had thought that high-profile friendly might have been put on a bit later, so it would have got a bigger global audience, because putting it on head-to-head against a competitive match in the Euro, I don't think it was a clever thing. But I mean, it was played in the heat of the afternoon in Meadowlands in New York, but.
Beauty and not enough grit, But I think yesterday, the fact that they won that game on the back of the German efficiency, it was like they were just going to go for it until they found a way. And what they showed you in that match, which they haven't shown in anything, is they've got an answer for everything. You push them out wide, they'll throw crosses in for Mario Gomez. You push them inside,
particularly
they can
from the right wing there, Muller, a lot of balls coming in, weren't there?
Exactly. You want them to go through inside, then you give Ozil license to create even more through balls, opportunities, defence-splitting passes. They have an answer for everything, and this is why I cannot honestly see, with them winning that 1-0 over Portugal, which is, in my opinion, has one of the best defences. They conceded a lot in qualifiers, but as far as star names go, would you really bet against Pepe, Coentrao and Bruno Alves?
Well, Bruno Alves had the header at the end, didn't he, as well? And Portugal weren't bad on the night, but perhaps they should have put their foot on the gas a little bit soon. Let's bring in someone with a German perspective, and James Thorogood from Bundesliga.com joins us. James, your reaction to Germany's performance last night, was it wholly convincing, and were you a little bit worried by the way they seemed rattled at the end when Portugal did go on the offensive?
No, it wasn't the most convincing performance. It wasn't, I don't think, the performance that many people expected to see from Germany. A lot of people obviously backing Germany as big favourites in this tournament, thinking that they're going to be able to see off teams comfortably, but Portugal gave them a run for their money. Instead of playing their counter-attacking style of football that we've been used to seeing in recent tournaments, we're seeing them hold possession more. And granted, while that cost them a little bit of movement up front, it meant that at the back they were certainly a lot more stable. I agree with you, Mina. Hummels coming in at the back instead of Mertesacker was a great move. He certainly proved himself, I think, last night, but he's still got space and time to develop really as a player. And then up front, obviously, you had the other strange decision, in my opinion, which was Mario Gomez starting over Miroslav Klose.
Yeah.
That one worked out in the end, but the fact is, if Klose really wasn't 100% fit, then I understand Jurgi Löw's decision. But if he was fit, I still would have played Klose, and I think we probably would have seen more goals had he started.
What happens now? Because Klose, it was his birthday yesterday, wasn't it? He's 8 years older than Mario Gomez. But Gomez was awful before he scored the goal, wasn't he? He didn't even know he was playing.
Well, that's it. On the international stage, Mario Gomez is going to have far less chances to really get himself into the groove compared to what he does with Bayern Munich. And And, you know, the German fans that I was around were getting very frustrated with Gomez, and then all of a sudden he scores and he's the saviour. And, I mean, it is those fine margins that determine things like that, but the fact is they were all calling for closure around about the 60th minute. At 70th minute it changes, but the fact is, you know, Gomez did well, but not as well as I think Klose would have done.
James, I do think that Mario Gomez offers you an alternative when it comes to if you're forcing Germany to play out wide, then he'll be great for you to just throw him crosses through. I do think Klose is better for the sake of the fact that if they do want to play fast football, you know, then he is better in his movements going forward, more mobile. But my question to you is that doesn't this tell you a lot more about Germany? Because I was scared they were going to be just a beautiful team that played really impressive football and perhaps not the German efficiency that we're used to. But surely now we can see that they can do both.
Yeah, exactly. They have the counter-attacking potential really to devastate teams on the break, you know, with the pace they've got out wide. But the fact is what we